Welcome one and all to the Department of the Air Force Esports not Invitational, not International. Invitational. 2 seconds in and I've already messed it up, LaFon. We're here with all of you online, but our players have the amazing opportunity to be at the Boeing Center at the Tech Center LAN in San Antonio, Texas, not Tensas. I'm 0 for 2 already, LaFon. My name is Possible. I'm here with LaFon, who thankfully can save me from my own inability to speak.
English is a tough language. What can I say? That being said, we have some exciting action underway. Overwatch 2 as we get set to have this one, and some pretty fantastic teams overall, right? Representation from multiple branches of the Army and the Navy, along with the Coast Guard and beyond. So there is a ton of exciting action to happen here. We're gonna start off with a round robin, move into elimination bracket as well. Yeah. So there's some. Honestly, the games today are gonna be super exciting.
Games not only today, but tomorrow as well. Let's break down how everything works. So today, you are here just in time because you get to see all the action in our round robin. We got 5 teams who will compete in 5 rounds, and it's pretty straightforward, right? You want the most wins to get the highest seeding. Seeds 1 and 2 will qualify to the second round of the championship bracket. First to 2 in our matches today, and then once we get into like the finals and the consolation finals tomorrow, then we go first to 3. That'll be in a single elimination bracket. Should be a very good time. Map 1 is predetermined. It's going to be control for our round robin games. We know where we are starting off for each of our rounds, and then whoever loses any given map will pick the next one, and the winning team will pick what side they want to start off. Pretty standard stuff here, LaFon.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of set a baseline in terms of the actual gameplay side of that, right? Keep it straightforward so the teams can perform to their greatest level. And of course, speaking of the teams, we touched on that on location, right? In LAN with their team, that adds a certain level of gameplay that we don't otherwise get to expect. So definitely looking forward to that. Of course, here is all the options we have available to us for our map pool. As we said, of course, the control maps will be selected per round here on day 1, and then the loser will be able to pick out from the maps as they kind of go forward. So exciting stuff, right? We it gives us an opportunity to know the teams as well, to know where they're going to for the first map. You kind of have a baseline expectation, right? Where to predict and sort of draw a game plan for that first map, and then obviously play your strengths from there on out.
And let's go ahead and take a look at our teams here. We got 5 teams competing today. The first of which that we are going to be seeing on stream is the team from the Army. We've got Specialist Aldana, Second Lieutenant Bagdwell, Sergeant Ellison, Specialist Hansen, and Second Lieutenant Pina. I hope I said that name right. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce any names today, folks. Going to be very exciting to see the Army compete here today, LaFon.
Indeed. And I mean, with that being said, of course, getting in, you can see the teams already setting up at their stations. Again, as we highlighted, the teams being in the same area with their teammates, communication is going to be a little bit more, get a little bit more clarity with that when you're in the same room. So definitely looking to that performance from our squads to get set.
And speaking frankly, Army is going to be one of our strongest teams this weekend, I think. Let's take a look at their first competition. It's going to be the team from the Navy, Army versus Navy. You can't ask for a better round 1 matchup. We've got Petty Officer Courtois, Petty Officer Sherry, Sonar Tech Submarine Sam Skaluska, Chief Cox, and Sonar Tech Submarine Bullard.
Exciting stuff as we get into it for the Navy, have themselves set up on the stage, and here again we get to witness them setting up for their game again across the desk there. So great stuff, right? Army versus Navy here for game number 1, and what a way to kind of set the tone for the tournament as we get into the later rounds here in the round robin.
Look, I like the Navy's branding here. Goats and Glory. That works on so many levels. Not only is goats like an Overwatch joke, but also just like, goats and then they get it works on every level of fun. You know me, I like puns. So this is everything.
I caution our audience though, you will not see goats gameplay today, mostly because
unfortunately
5 Overwatch 2, right? So but that being said, I mean, let's talk about the game, right? We are on the live patch, obviously. So Junker Queen is going to be an option here for our teams, and we know how much of a reign of terror she's kind of been on the live patch, and I'm excited to see how our teams kind of bring forward. Again, the teams have been practicing, right? This is not just walking in, showing up. No, they've been kind of getting in there, getting some practice, some scrims, and so forth. So definitely looking forward to what they've kind of assessed as an option here for map number 1.
Not just practice in and of themselves in a LAN environment, which is a great thing like by itself, but also there's ex-Overwatch League coaches in the in the Boeing Center who've got a chance to like sit down and talk with these teams. It's such a cool opportunity. Arrow and Kai stepping in there. We'll see what they've been able to do for our two teams. Like you said, it's Lijiang Tower to start us off, and also like you said, the Army already hovering over that Junker Queen. It's going to be very difficult to beat the Junker Queen with pretty much anything on this patch. She is a menace to society.
And of course, we are starting off a control center here for round number 1. And with that being said, Brawl is going to be the name of the game. Navy out the gates with the Reinhardt. A lot of healing, a lot of sustain available to them. We'll see how well Emma can keep in play with the Junker Queen, right? As Paradox steps to the foreground.
Yeah, Emma she's going to have quite the tall task. You can already see the respect the Navy are paying to this composition, right? You can't walk up hastily and brawl against this comp, especially with Gravy on the Mei. You don't want to get ice walled off. So good discipline thus far from the Navy. They are losing their shields and their lives pretty quickly here. Emma getting bullied and can't quite make it around the corner. Oh no. Oh, now the snowball begins to roll and the Army take control.
One of the big problems with the Junker Queen, obviously, is that she has a lot of sustain and surprisingly a lot of range damage as well, right? You'd expect with a shotgun to kind of be a little bit closer quarters, but if you're if you're in that 15-20 meter mark, she's really going to start putting some pressure down. And with that, I mean, Paradox 82% to the Rampage, significantly ahead of anybody else in the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, Coalescence is the next closest all, right? And that's because the healing is so intense. Not that Dabula is going to have a chance to get to it this fight. Getting through this choke is nigh on impossible too. I mean, even if you manage to get through, I respect the effort on the pin there, Emma. I respect it.
Making the best of a bad situation, right? The knife comes out. Gracie hits the Reinhardt player there, and Paradox drags them out of spawn, but not able to kind of get that reset. The bubbles now from the Zarya, looking to try and cleanse perhaps a lot of the bleed that the Junker Queen applies. Gonna have to work double time though, because again, here comes that Rampage in, coupled with the Blizzard too. This is gonna be a really rough fight for the Navy.
Zarya can be a nice pivot here. You can use the bubbles to cleanse off a lot of that Junker Queen bleed, but again, just how do you break this choke, right? Like, especially against the Blizzard.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a one ult fight win. It's going to get the Army up to the rest of their resources here. And I mean, now it's all about Army just not overspending, trying to get just stretch it across the line, use one ultimate to kind of win a fight. And then in the penultimate fight, when the Navy has basically all theirs, just kind of hit, match for match in terms of ultimates.
Nothing short of the dominance from the Navy so far. Shadow Fathom actually with the TP pass. Doesn't want any of the fight. It's going to go try and back cap while the rest of the Navy is dealing with this choke. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to join him. Emma is already down with the Coalescence expiring. There's not much healing for the Navy. Shadow Fathom actually has almost gotten the back cap. Oh, so close. Boo, no fun allowed. Oh, wait, fun allowed. He's got it.
I mean, tragically, it's going to be like
it's 10% a little short-lived.
Maximum. Yeah. Oh, actually, no. I tell a lie. We'll do about 12.
Let's take him to the wasteland.
Hey,
exactly
we'll take 12. Well, unfortunately, 12% doesn't win you a round. Not against 100. Yeah, Army. If you weren't already sure that the Junker Queen was going to be really good on the live patch, because a lot of Overwatch these days, we talk about like pro streams and stuff. It's Overwatch League, it's contenders, it's Path to Pro. It's all on the patch before this. Junker Queen turns out kind of good.
Getting a quick look, of course, at the Army after their winning round there, but that's all it is, right? It's one round. Got to get to close out this first map, and so we head to one of the further stages in the game to see if the Navy can mount a response. Obviously, I think that one of the things to kind of highlight here, of course, is that with that Junker Queen, she's able to control via damage, but also like zone control. We talk about the knife a lot, right? Being able to dislodge players in choke points, make it very difficult for them to kind of roll through. As we head to an open stage, there's an opportunity, I think, for the Navy to kind of play to their strengths a bit. They were locked out on the first round, but as we get to the night market, an opportunity here for things to kind of turn around.
Well, not in the first fight, not so much. The Bull getting the wrong end of the pharmacy comp. Gravy laying in the damage. DCat, yeah, doesn't stand a chance. Wow, got good airtime there. I mean, between the moon boots, the rocket knockback, and the pile driver from Paradox, good airtime. Unfortunately, airtime isn't a scoreable metric in Overwatch.
Yeah. I do think it's kind of interesting that the Army's playing around Paradox quite a bit, with the tank selection. Yeah. One thing to kind of highlight, of course, in Overwatch 2 is that tank is the most difficult role, in my opinion, in terms of the amount of breadth you have to cover, right? From everything from the historical main tanks to the flex tanks. And Paradox, I mean, a big shift, right? Wrecking Ball to Junker Queen, that's a big departure, and looking good so far.
Shadow Fathom losing out on the Tracer head-to-head a little bit there, already expending all the blinks to recall. Meanwhile, the Navy's struggling again to break these chokes. The Army doing such a good job of exercising control over the most pivotal portions of the map. DCat gets ran over. Peter joins him in the grave, and I mean, a bubble at least keeps Shadow Fathom in the conversation for a moment, but just one.
The composition the Army is running is really dependent on kind of a hit and run style, right? Paradox sets up players for success, and then Gravy layers in rockets to, soften up targets. But that also means that Magmonix here, you're going to come in. Tracer is a really good assassin in her own right, but coupled with the free damage to kind of come in, you have to do like 20, 30 damage for those final blows.
Okay. Recall gets Shadow Fathom away from the Tracer v Tracer stick there. A little bit bold from Magmonix. Try and go for that one. But how do you deal with Gravy? Incoming barrage too. Although the immortality field's up the entire time. No one helping out with that one means that the barrage itself doesn't get much. The rest of the Army will, though.
Even Luna trying to get in on the action in terms of the Mercy gameplay.
Yeah,
here.
get him! Get him!
Alrighty. That's going to be... Actually, it's likely going to be the round. I don't know that there's anyone who's going to be able to touch in this particular instance. Tito, a fast-moving character, but the Soldier, a very squishy one at that, and already taking a rocket directly in. That should be it. No contest available as the Navy likely to go down 0-2 here.
Yeah, Navy's certainly struggling. Between Gravy and Paradox, I mean, the team play right now from the Army is superb. And it'll get them that map number 1. Reminder, folks, it is 1-2 here, so the Army already halfway done with sending home, well, not sending home the Navy. They'll be here all weekend, but you know what I mean.
The first match in the round robin is so very important. So the Army off to a great start here. And I mean, one of the things, talking about team play, right? The compositions that the Army is running. The first one, okay, you can argue the Junker Queen is a very, reliable character in her own right in this patch. You kind of expect her to be able to kind of hold up on, to whatever's coming forth, especially in an unmirrored situation. Now, second round, though, on that Wrecking Ball, that's a much more team-oriented composition. And as a whole, the Army doing a great job of playing around, their win conditions. It's not a case of just stepping forward and having one player pop off. It's the Wrecking Ball, stepping in, assisting with the Tracer, the Vara raining in damage as well. So clearly a well-practiced kind of situation here from the Army. And unfortunately for the Navy, right, it's a composition that once it gets rolling, pun definitely intended, it's really difficult to slow down.
I lied. I said I liked puns. I lied. That one sucked. I mean, the Army right now is just showing extremely high-level discipline and game knowledge, right? Their compositions are 100% coherent. They're working together exactly how these comps need to. You talk about the pharmacy and the Wrecking Ball being that sort of 1-2 punch, right? Either Paradox on the Wrecking Ball is getting a lot of value, a lot of displacements, and that sets Gravy up, or Gravy hits the direct. Those players are really low, and then Magmonix and Paradox come in to sweep the rest of the team under the rug. So really solid start from the Army, I doubt they're going to be slowing down much as we head over to map number 2, LaFon.
We do have to highlight, though, that map number 2 ends up being the Navy's pick because they lost the initial round. So, here's where the kind of the game theory steps in. How does the Navy, what do they believe are their strengths as we head into hybrid, actually, for our map number 2? And, are they going to play towards their strengths? We saw that they seem to like the rush the most. Even playing it on the second round, it's going to be a very critical, of critical importance, rather, for them to try and showcase that in the map selection. I would expect something like King's Row.
King's Row incoming. King's Row incoming. Come on, LaFon. where are we gonna go other than King's Row? It's everybody's favorite, especially if you're running the rush. Especially with considering the maps in our pool for the hybrid, right? I mean, as we take a look back at Lijiang Tower here, if you want to try and run things like the Reinhardt and the Zarya, it's not going to work very well on Blizzard World. It's not going to work very well on Hollywood, outside of like the last point for either of those maps, right? Whereas King's Row, even though we do see more variety on King's Row these days than we did once upon a time, it's still the best of those 3 options if you want to keep the composition that sort of death ball, linear, run at you comp.
To play contrarian for a second, though, I think when you talk about the head-to-head rush, you have to say that the Army was just was better in that situation, right? It's 100 to 12%. I mean, right? But it's an effective 100-0 knockout on Control Center, which is that rush mirror. When we went to the dive-esque, or when we had a little bit more mobility, that's where the Navy showed a little bit more, I'd say, room to operate.
Sure, I think that's fair, but also you have to consider like Control Center on Lijiang is just a nightmare to try and retake against like a Mei rush comp, right? So I give a little bit of leeway over to the Navy. They have in fact selected King's Row, so
Appreciate. What can I say?
Your refute that you had, I don't know if it's going to be 100% relevant.
Options, right? You gotta have options. That's the kind of the name of the game. But I mean, yeah, we even touched on it for King's Row with that selection that it is possible to run. We've seen a lot of Winston actually as of late on King's Row. I think my interesting thing is how does the Army respond? They obviously get to select side. They've elected to defend first, and with that being said, I mean this is sort of that hybrid dive poke that has become more popular on King's Row in recent memory, right? You have sort of the dual setup of the tank, in this case the Doomfist from Paradox, as well as the assistant in Gravy on the sort of the hit and run characters like a Tracer, like a Sombra, to kind of set up those backline dives, and then all the while you have your hit scan playing very safely on high ground. Poking from afar. It's a really good multi-stage setup, and I think for the Army, as they defend first, they're likely going to be able to draw down the clock quite a bit, especially because there's no one in the Navy who can really assail the support line of the Army. Yeah,
I mean, Tito and Shadowfathom are just going to have to do tons of work poking, right? A lot of long-range pressure is necessary. The good news is, this is a pretty hard team to dive. When it comes to Paradox and Gravy, Decat, Debull, Shadowfathom, Tito, well, they should all have escape tools, theoretically. Not that it's going to stop Paradox on the first entry. He's just tanking him. Oh, no, not the body block in the corner. Oh, it's a brutalization.
I mean, even getting the punch out of the immortality field to get the cleanup damage there. Doesn't even need to eliminate, that cooldown. So really well played by the Army. You talk about the dive being difficult. The one thing that kind of changes that is the hack, right? It's such a damage burst, as well as it gives you that interrupt for that, second-ish. It makes it so difficult to stay alive.
Shadowfathom now trying to match that difficulty on the hack. Paradox awfully low. Emma can't keep the pressure on, though, and a slap disables the shield. Lets Paradox clean her up.
Here comes the sort of awkward part of hybrid, where the game slows down a little bit because the defense has won the first 2 fights really cleanly. They're going to be first, to some of those key ultimates. Of course, looking at the EMP, the nano boost specifically, that's going to take another fight off. And all of a sudden, the Navy's looking at kind of a last fight territory, barring a miracle pick from someone like Tito or Shadowfathom.
Yeah, it's tough to be talking about last fight with 2 minutes, 30 seconds on the clock, but Army do have quite a lead, and now the Meteor Strike available as a get-out-of-jail-free card. If Paradox wasn't already living rent-free inside of the Navy's backline, I mean, now there's just nothing to really fear. Outside of a perfectly timed hack from Shadowfathom, it's going to be really difficult to make this work. EMP lobbed on in. Why not? Decat's done. Somewhat, an optimistic coalescence. I don't know if that was ever going to turn the tide, and even at least it gets the Meteor Strike out. That's something.
Yeah, it does force the meteor strike. So, you know, that's one tool that now Paradox can play just a little bit more passively than he has, you know, before in the round. So that being said, it's solely empowered punch available, right? This can, yeah.
Oh,
that's so tough.
No immortality field available. Paradox and Gravy are just on top of it right now, in sync. Even a Kitsune Rush thrown in. The Army not afraid to lob those tools in. That might come back to bite them as EMP is coming online for the Navy.
Yeah, now here's where the question is. For the first time this game, actually, including round number 1, Navy is going to be able to have a consistent and concerted effort, right, with ultimates. When Shadow Fathom comes off the respawn, I'm expecting to see kind of like an EMP tactical visor combo, maybe. I wouldn't even be upset at seeing the amplification matrix thrown in. You kind of need to overspend ults here because you need to capture the point on this fight. Otherwise, you're going to be running into last fight with nothing left in the bank.
And already, the Army. I mean, the Army and choke points. Name a more iconic duo. I'm sure some of their tactical lessons in actual training was about controlling those, and they've transferred it well into the realm of Overwatch.
No, that's one player down. That's a nano boost here gone as Luna gets taken out. So with 30 seconds left, I mean, it's a small window of opportunity, but one that exists nonetheless. And I'd like to see the Navy kind of group up here and try and play as quickly as possible. Just dump ultimates in on this fight.
Yeah, honestly, EMP, Shatter. Let's see him. A charge in. Emawiwi's not afraid. Here comes that EMP. Tyson at the ready. Oh, so close to getting those necessary pickups, but Gravy with an ult of his own, an EMP, stopping the Navy in their tracks. And now Paradox nanoed up and everything. Army, I'm not even sure they lost a single player on that defense, LaFawn. What a clinic they have displayed.
Really, really good stuff there. And with that, I mean, now the Army, at worst, is playing for a draw. But, you know, it's going to take them 4 minutes to take 1/3 of the objective. That's a really approachable position to kind of be in, right? So expectations here is for Army. The other thing too is now because you have so much time and space to kind of work with, you can play for a cheese fight, right? You don't need to work as if you're playing for the entire map. So whether that be play for, you know, a sniper for an early pickoff, or you play your composition to develop, you know, 5 ultimates and kind of just throw them all at once into kind of the thick of things and just force a fight win that way. Both are viable options because, again, you're not playing for you know, working to second to third and beyond. It's kind of just a win at all costs sort of situation for that 1/3 of the objective.
You know what I haven't seen in a long time, LaFawn, that I would love to? The attacking Bastion Sim TP on top of the statue. I'd love that, personally. It would be a grand old time. It seems like the Army are going to go with a reasonable comp.
Lifeweaver?
Instead. Lifeweaver? No way. Surely not, right? I mean, Lifeweaver not necessarily in the best place right now, but honestly, when you got the heat like the Army do right now, maybe you can make it work. Seems like they won't bother with it, though. They just want to get this done and dusted. Very standard, very aggressive dive comp with the Echo.
And it also means Echo's really strong against the Ramatra, right? A big target can often put a ton of pressure onto the block.
Oh, and already both DPS down for the Navy. They have to peel back here, but they don't have much room to work with. Only 1 tick necessary for the Army to clean up this map and series. And with DCAT done, Emawiwi already having to use the Nemesis form. She's holding on best she can, folks, but against the storm that the Army bring with them, it is not enough. The Navy gets their boat rocked, and the Army will take their first series.
Nice 2-0 there. Also denying much in terms of percentage to their opponent, right? It was what, like 12% on control, and then again a full shutout here. You can see the Army getting you know, taking that victory in stride as they'll move on for the round robin. So we'll start off with a 1-0 here at the DAF Esports Invitational, and yeah, what a fantastic performance there from the Army.
They look just so collected, you know. They got big old smiles. They knew this win was coming. Oh, don't give us the 4K the view of the aerial shot of DCAT getting locked in the corners. Brutal stuff. Magmonix too. I mean, I think quietly was absolutely destructive, right? I know we talked about Gravy a little bit more because just on a technically more impactful hero for most of these, right? Like you think of the Pharaoh with the Far Mercy. The Sombra was obviously a nightmare for the Navy to deal with, but Magmonic's just solidly pumping in the damage at range, not letting any stragglers get past the front line of the army. Solid 2-0 win for them to start off their day. We do have an update on our other series as well, folks. Department of the Air Force CONUS, that is the continental United States, won their first match against the Coast Guard to, I think, surprise of few. The Department of the Air Force CONUS is a monstrous team. So they're going to be taking that 1-0 as well. Very well done by them, and I'm excited to see our game number 2, Lafon. Yeah, this is our standings as we have it so far. Still need to get CONUS, which is outside the continental United States. Yeah, you know, CONUS. Okay. It'll be confusing later when those teams play, but for now, I hope you guys know the difference.
I think it'd be more for us, actually, not necessarily the viewers. That being said,
I have to say it multiple times just so that I remember which is which.
Yeah, I mean, a great start, right? One of the things about the round robin, you get a sense of where the teams lay in respective power levels to each other, right? Obviously, the Army with that 2-0, looking to start off quite strong. And keep in mind, high seeding gets you put into that first, yes, competitive bracket immediately. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Obviously, our two teams that won are the early leaders, but we'll have to see how well the rest of the field kind of levels out once we get those games going. So definitely interested to see how it plays out, but a really competitive start here from the Army early.
Yeah, we're going to go to our game number 2 here, folks, in just a quick minute. So much Overwatch coming at you today. You won't want to miss a second of it, so stay tuned through the break.
It's definitely something that gets brought up because, you know, it's like, oh, you're just playing video games for the Army. And it's like, well, no, I mean, one, it's camaraderie, so we can all actually hang out and de-stress with that. And then 2, it's an outreach thing. So people in the community can see that we're just people in the end. So we play games and we do things just like everyone else.
Trying to look to a strong front line, making sure that we have the correct positioning going up against, you know, probably some seasoned FPS players. But I think as long as we play together, we have good comms, and we'll do fine.
Sticks like it's Columbine. Running up the dollar signs. Yeah, ain't no hiding from them hollow cans. Yeah, bring up like the Taliban. That's my paper, don't you bottom mine. Yeah, heavy paddock on me, break my wrist off. Yeah, lift off. I got big dog status, I'm a big dog bet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah, ride around the field with a stick all black. Try with a poker, we with all that. Yeah, big dog status, I'm a big dog bet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah, ride around the field with a stick all black. Try with a poker, we with all that. Yeah.
One of the biggest things I've noticed is kind of connections you make with people and organizations or charity, whether it's friendly connections, whether it's business connections or career connections. That's one big takeaway that I've never really had that kind of experience.
My teammate Gooby was the one that was trying to find people, and so he grabbed me, asked me to play, because I actually got Gooby and Night into Overwatch a long time ago. So
since Overwatch 2's come out, I've probably fired it up twice before the beginning of March, and Gooby reached out to me. He's like, hey, I know you used to play this game a lot. You're pretty good at it. Why don't you play with me for a round and see if I want to pick you up for our team for the Coast Guard tournament. We really did well in the tournament in the Coast Guard, and we have a lot of synergy. It's been pretty fun.
A lot of our strategies preparing for this event are really about just finding what hero compositions we can make, what teams work best with the skill sets that we have. A lot of us have pretty narrow hero pools, so trying to find out if we can just play a brawl comp or play a poke comp or something like that, and just focus on those 1 or 2 comps that we're strongest at.
Just trying to see what my teammates need and how I can support the team translates to my everyday life too. Trying to see where I can help out, I guess, and where I can assist and try to get in there and help things move along.
it's actually been a really good experience. It's kind of crazy to have so many people from different units kind of come together, just be able to cooperate. It's kind of it shows the adaptability of, certain branches, and obviously the Coast Guard to be able to work together as a team.
One of the most important things I've learned through the Coast Guard gaming as a team is communication and teamwork. It's not like most first-person shooters where you're just playing solo queuing. We are a team of 5 people. One person can throw it off versus talking and understanding that we have limitations based off who we have and don't have.
Kind of surreal when you know someone for 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, and then finally get to meet that person. After you talk to them every single day, it just seems like you know them so well.
I think it's very important, especially being in the military. You're always moving every 4 years. Kind of hard to keep a consistent friend group, but through Coast Guard Gaming, you get a sense of friendships that can be maintained worldwide when there's distance between you guys.
Just the camaraderie. It is a team-based game, and when you're winning and you're on such a high, and I love that about it.
I never met any of these guys when I first started playing. The communication from then to now and the camaraderie, it's just so much different from just being within my own work section or with my own group of friends and stuff like that.
Ever since I joined the league, I would definitely say that the league has taught me a lot of things. I have teammates that I've never played before. How do I interact with them? How do I get the best out of them? How do they get the best out of me? Guys, I know this is your strengths. Here's my strengths. Here's your weaknesses. Here's our weaknesses.
When you're losing, you still have to stay positive, but it's okay because if you have good teammates, they'll keep the spirits high, and that's what's important to us.
Overall, the team looks pretty good, I would say. We picked up pretty well, and we picked up how fast we can communicate and work well within a matter of 2 days. That some teams take maybe a year or 2 to do.
Yeah, normally you just play with people and you see their name, you don't see any face, so it's really cool to be able to meet my teammates and get to know them really well.
I think we're really good at a brawl style comp. The more we keep it simple, the better it goes, the better we can execute, and I think that's what we really excel at, is keeping it simple, going for the pushes, and working together.
If there was one character I used to play a lot, was Doom. So Doom now is pretty fun for me, and sometimes Ramatra.
Ashe, she for sure is my favorite of the heroes.
Do something.
Oh, #1, Kiriko. Funnest character in the game. Sneaking up, getting a pick, throwing 2 kunais, disappearing on them.
So a big part for me as DPS is I will be watching the flanks. I've been guarding. When we all dive on one character, I'm supposed to be the damage dealer, right? So I gotta be there to put that damage into whatever that character so we can get the pick.
I like to see avenues to try to win the game or try to get a pick, help my teammates out, and just try overall win the game.
I think our biggest challenge will be the Konis team. We've been playing them pretty close. Yeah, hopefully we'll make it a close game against them in the finals.
I'm not concerned about too much. It's just a matter of learning what they have first and just adapting to it, you know? It might seem a bit rough in the beginning, but as soon as we can make those changes, it might make it or break it.
Technically, I have 2 dream jobs. Would have been being in the military. I had that idea since I was 5. And when I started getting into gaming, be a professional gamer at some point. Technically, I have both. And it's incredible that the Air Force kind of gave me this chance to do something like it.
Match 1 was pretty quick. The Army got that done lickety-split. So now we get into our second match because off-stream, the other match, just as quick. That's good news for you folks. That means we don't got to wait around for any action. It's coming to you right here, right now. We got the Coast Guard coming in to play the Department of the Air Force outside of the continental United States, Oconus, for their first game. Coast Guard, it wasn't so hot in their first game, but now they have a chance to turn it around, LaFon.
Redemption opportunity, and as obviously we heard in the interview, a little split there before the game. You know what the players are kind of seeing this tournament as, and really what it was designed for, right? Getting an opportunity to kind of play alongside your teammates, and you know we touched on that a little bit earlier, but that getting that opportunity in person, really impressive stuff. And of course, we heard about the camaraderie and how the teams are able to kind of stay connected over long periods of time. So really excited to see how Coast Guard, if they can make a kind of recovery here in game number 2.
And now we get to see like all of that camaraderie come in. This is our roster, our players for the Coast Guard here, folks. You get to see that camaraderie, right? You get to see them all get to join each other in a LAN environment. Again, they're inside the Boeing Center in San Antonio, tennis. I did it again. I said tennis again, LaFon. That's the second time. I couldn't say Texas. In San Antonio, Texas, because as you know, tennis isn't a place. There they are, right now, right on your screens, and ready to turn their day around.
And I think we do have to kind of emphasize the point, of what the players were saying, kind of in those interviews. When you're winning, right, things are good, but when you're losing, staying together as a team, getting an opportunity to kind of reset and go from there is really impressive. Let's take a look though at their opposition, the Department of the Air Force, Oconus, standing forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the video with these guys. They seem to have a good vibe going, They're all talking about like their favorite characters. Now, putting them together would be an interesting composition. Doomfist, Ash, Kiriko is certainly a comp. Not unwinnable, though. We just saw the Army take a pretty dominant King's Row with it. So I'm interested to see how Oconus does. Again, this will be their first match. We have 5 teams, which means that only 4 play at a time, and one team gets, chill per round. So now Oconus, they get to step up to the plate against the Coast Guard. We're starting off on Ilios for map number 1. Again, map 1 is predetermined in our first to 2 games on the first day here, folks. And then it'll be loser picks from there on out.
And actually, as we saw from the camera there for the DAF Oconus team, Arrow in the back there on camera, right? This is a team that kind of was picked, right? Both of them actually, Conus and Oconus, the 2 DAF squads were picked and kind of selected to see who the best performing team would be coming from those 2 sides of the of this team. So really excited to see how they perform and what that looks like, what players coming in getting that coaching and expectation is. So I think for DAF Oconus, despite this being their first game, I think we should have high expectations for them here in this first match.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, especially under the coaching of ex-Overwatch League, right? Arrow, you did with the World Cup, the Dallas Fuel. No surprises that he would be able to identify the talent in this DAF lineup for Oconus. Ilios is going to be an interesting place for us to start here, LaFon, because we talked about it a little bit in our match number 1. We are on the live patch. It means a lot of Junker Queen, but I feel like there's a couple instances here where Junker Queen can get a little finicky to run, I'll say.
Yeah, well is perhaps not her best
exactly
location. To be fair, though, there are very few tanks who love well.
And I'll say Junker Queen, if you're hitting those knives, you could yoink some people into the pit. It'd be pretty funny.
What's also really funny is when you use Rampage and you misjudge your distance and you fall into the well.
Oh. I mean, that would be funny for us.
It would be very funny for us. It'd be funny for the other team too. Whoever.
That's true. That's true. As long as we don't get any teleports off the map here, LaFon, we'll be doing just fine. I'm interested to see too, because obviously, right? We talk about what's technically meta. We talk about the best character this, the best character that. But also, we just saw the army succeed with a lot of characters that you wouldn't necessarily put in the top tier of the conversation. And a lot of the time, if you have a personal preference, we saw Oconus, they were talking about how they really enjoyed things like the Doomfist, which isn't technically forefront of the meta right now, but if you are proficient enough with a hero like that, no harm in run. Well, there can be some harm in running it, but it's still technically potentially better than the alternative.
Alrighty. Get set to go. Gooby hovering over the Widow. A strong pick, actually, historically on this map, but we'll see how well it holds up with the rest of this team, right? Mercy and Brig. So this backline can be quite vulnerable. As DAF Oconus looks to be setting up with a Brawl instead. Xerxes likely to teleport out of spawn, then probably switching over to Tracer if I had to expect. Soldier instead. High mobility composition still, or rather DPS.
A long range damage here. You do have to be careful against the Widowmaker specifically. Ranger and Xerxes can't afford to just go into the open. Xerxes saw the Widow. Nope. Hey guys, don't swing. Don't go that way. We can play from the high ground here. This is fine. Slight position here from Gooby. Yeah, it's a tight angle. Tough to hit that shot. Now the push comes in from Oconus too. I mean, they're mostly underneath the sightlines of the Widowmaker. Baby dashing a bit too far forward there, trying to assist Guidozam in the front lines. It will not go very well. First cap goes to Oconus comfortably.
And I mean, look at this. I mean, Gooby just can't play that aggressively because with the breakdown, right, the healing only comes from Night Knight. And that pocket isn't really available for the hit scan. So with that, Gooby has to play so passively. Ranger 16 takes full advantage of it, and a clean fight cleanup from DAF Oconus. They'll hold to the choke point now, and all of a sudden they're playing from their strength. Gooby, has to switch over to the Ashe. They need a little bit more consistent damage from their front line.
I mean, Ashe's great pick into this composition, right? The Dynamite can get you a lot of AoE damage. You build up to those bobs very quickly, potentially, as long as you're getting the splash damage properly set. Maybe a little bit over-focused on Frostcross right now. I promise the Lucio's not your #1 threat here, Gooby. Yeah, there you go. Pivot over, fight Ranger some. Nice little headshot there, but no one can quite get up to the high ground to finish that off, and Coast Guard caught off in the open a little bit too much there. The crossfire in from Oconus eventually gets the job done.
One of the nice things there is DAF Oconus allows the Coast Guard to, you know, kind of overspend their time, right? You don't need to win every fight if you only, or rather, you don't need to win multiple fights if each fight is, you know, going to be like a 30-second fight, right? It takes a lot of time, and DAF Oconus is more than content to allow Coast Guard to stand at a choke point and poke away, only using the Ant Matrix when absolutely necessary.
Already. Oh, Gooby down. Blackhawk does have to use the Nemesis form for that one, and now trying to chase back to the objective, assist the rest of the team. Annihilation at the ready, though. That's another cooldown you're able to throw in there. Swinging us around, too. Sound barrier invested, even though Bing falls. DAF Oconus simply cannot be bested. We're looking at 100-0 for our first round of Ilios. Total dominance from the Department of the Air Force.
I'll just get you some tongue twisters here.
Bro, I don't know what it is. I apparently just woke up with like rubber bands on my tongue or something. I don't know.
DAF,
have you ever done that, by the way? It hurts.
No, I can't say that I have.
I just got, like, as I said that, I got one of those like very random flashbacks to like just like 12 years ago. Anyways, strong start here for Oconus. No surprises.
One thing to kind of also highlight is that was 3 fights, right? And that's such a limited, space to kind of work in. You expect, honestly, on Control, you're kind of expecting 5, maybe 6. But again, DAF Oconus more than willing to like only take the fights they absolutely need to, and Coast Guard haven't really forced the issue yet.
And still running the Ramatra here on well. That can be a little bit tricky. Orisa showing her head on the other side of things. This is a very interesting composition. Pseudo death ball from the Coast Guard, right? They can get really up in your face, and the Reaper is a good tool to keep pressure on Blackhawk. But how do you break past this line? A teleport's an ambitious way to try and do so. Ranger right there, or actually no, not Ranger. Bing instead has to use the immortality field, and still a little bit low. Now vulnerable in the back line, just trying to regroup with the rest. Scotty knows he knows you gotta get that pick at some point, but couldn't quite finish off the Baptiste. And that gives Oconus everything they need to charge in.
Something we got to talk about, though, is comfort in terms of selection, right? Which is better, the optimal pick or the pick that you're, more experienced on? Sometimes a suboptimal selection that you have a ton of time ends up being, a more effective start.
True.
But in this case, anyway, DAF Oconus, they bide their time. And this is going to be something that the Coast Guard is going to have to quickly resolve. They just have to be a lot quicker about taking fights.
We just, I'm a little bit too far forward there compared to the rest of the Coast Guard. I think some people are still coming off of spawn.
Ooh, nice.
Nice shot from Gooby. Shuts down Xerxes. Tough, though, to make that into a viable opportunity, though, while Guidozam is down. Xerxes Tracer, pretty quick. We'll be back in plenty of time.
I like that Gooby's not really giving up much map control, though, right? Still holding a ton of pressure. DAF Oconus has to be a little bit more passive. Look at this overclock. This is going to be a difference maker, I think.
Oh, gotta push through the Ant Matrix here. It's too much damage, way too much. Guidozam again getting annihilated by Blackhawk, who then pops the Annihilation, funnily enough. The sound barrier to give it all the teeth it needs. Maybe a bit of an overinvestment from Oconus here, actually. 3 ults to win that fight, whereas the Coast Guard hardly used anything.
Yeah, I mean, the Coast Guard, you're going to trade Overclock for, the 3 big resources of DAF Oconus. Now you're coming in with the sound barrier for sustain. And then, with Orisa stepping forward, you're going to be able to hold a lot of map here. I really like this, actually.
And I mean, Guidozam actually can bully a couple of these players with the Terror Surge. Needs to catch up to him. Has no idea where Bing just went off to. Now trying to double back. Assisting, getting rid of Blackhawk, and manages to do so. Nice Death Blossom, too, from Scotty Knows. And still a pretty cheap fight here for the Coast Guard. They'll manage to get their first percentage of the map.
Yeah, and they're actually going to force DAF Oconus to switch. And because DAF Oconus don't use either the DPS ultimates to kind of sustain through, you talk about that being cheap for the Coast Guard. They still have the sustain, right? And with the Terror Surge in tow, it locks players up just enough that you can give Scotty Knows just time to get those Hellfire shotguns singing in close.
I'm being told, by the way, that Blackhawk is apparently playing on controller. Madman. Absolutely insane. Here comes the sound barrier. Maybe a little bit early. Now you got to push really aggressively. Nice Terror Surge, but it only gets the Immortality Field out, and they couldn't quite finish off Cersei's Urbane. Cersei's so low. Okay, eventually Night Knight gets it done, but it costs Guidozem. That's not a worthwhile trade. Now it's over 70 energy. Blackhawk can charge forward, controller or no. Able to deal a lot of damage there. Coast Guard's still hanging on to this corner best they can, but once the Ant Matrix comes in, there's nothing you can do.
Still, you're still kind of, just keeping the contest going, right? You're going to have a final fight here. You need to get Blackhawk out of this, though. This Zarya is such a menace.
I mean, it's going to be hard to even contest here now for the Coast Guard. Look, body blocked, annihilated. Guidozem not given a chance, not given a choice. It's 2-0 on Ilios for our map 1. Department of the Air Force, outside the continental United States, coming on home and getting off to a very hot start.
I mean, there's that team, camaraderie stepping forward. The fist bumps across the desk. Really well done. As Coast Guard will have to take kind of a back seat for the moment. Right, their selection comes up next.
It's such a small thing, but it's such a pro gamer thing, right? You win the round, everybody fist bumps. Arrow's coaching this team, all right.
It's one of those things that it's tough to kind of oversell how much being with your team matters, right? It's the big moments are just that much better, and then the rough moments are not necessarily easier to come back from, but at least there's other people with you, right? And it's a little, you can kind of work together to have that kind of step forward. So really well done here by DAF Okonis for their first map. See if they can make it work on the second.
Yeah, it's just really clean. Very few, outside of the one fight where we saw a bit of an overinvestment, an understandable overinvestment at that, right? Because there was a lot of pressure, there was a lot of urgency to win that fight, but it was both support ults and your tank ultimate, right? So outside of that one fight, nothing short of perfection really from Okonis on this map number 1.
I'd like to draw attention to the Coast Guard though, because it's not like a lot of times we talk about a team performing really well, it's at the expense of another because they played very poorly. I think that the Coast Guard actually had moments where they took advantage of good play on their own, right? That 55% thereabouts that was earned on Well was off a really good setup. Scotty knows coming in with the Death Blossom, well timed, I might add. Just a really good read by the DPS player there and set up well by the team. So, still an opportunity for the Coast Guard to make this one a competitive round as they'll head to their map selection of Hollywood and try and even up the series.
Yeah, I mean, Gooby with some nice shots too, shutting down Xerxes on occasion, right? I think the DPS of the Coast Guard certainly at least have the opportunity to give Okonis a run for their money. That being said, we go to Hollywood for our map number 2. Interesting to see Hollywood here. Instead of just your typical, your typical Kings Row, right? Especially, well, I was gonna say in like North America. I guess technically, well, no, it's not Okonis. It's Coast Guard. Do they count as? Yeah, we'll count them. They're NA. It's fine. It's fine. Either way, though, Hollywood leans itself into a lot of dive, right?
We do have a substitute on DAF Okonis, actually. Frostcross out, Heroes in. On the support role. I mean, we heard from Heroes really likes the Kiriko as a selection.
I'm excited to see it.
I mean, Kiriko's such a fun character, right?
Right? I mean, I always, it's always so much fun to watch those kunai land.
Yeah. Especially when they're headshots. Very
yeah, one of the most satisfying characters to land headshots with.
I will say, I don't think there's a bigger variance in all of Overwatch, though, between the satisfaction of headshot, body shot. So like the satisfaction of a headshot versus the disappointment of a body shot, than on Kiriko. Like I hit a headshot, I'm like, ooh, that's nice.
120 damage versus 25. Yeah, it's quite a bit. This is a good map for Kiriko too, right? A lot of vertical mobility. You play a lot of dive. You can play an aggressive variant of the dive with the Kiriko, where you're teleporting in with your Winston, or you at least have the opportunity to Suzu get really aggressive up in their face.
We're also seeing actually in recent memory, like having your Tracer Kiriko be a 2-player kind of flanking setup,
a dynamic duo.
Yeah, which is really interesting, I think, as an adaptation. So. One thing about DAF Okonis having that opportunity to be coached, right? Their strategies are a little bit more flexible on in fight-to-fight scenarios, and I'm curious as to how that kind of, especially with a more technical map like Hollywood. Control is one of those maps that, sure, there's a lot of strategy that goes into it, but at its core, it's two teams kind of running at each other around an objective, right? And because of the time crunch of the of the control percentage, you don't get a lot of time to set up and select your fights that you would necessarily like. As we head to more objective-based game modes like hybrid, you get a little bit more time. It gives you a little bit more discerning with which fights you want to take, and that gives more opportunities for kind of coaching to have that or have that matter.
I also do think that it gives a window to the Coast Guard too, though, right? Because whereas Control is a very fast-paced mode, it's a lot of I don't want to say instinct. That's not quite the right word, but that conditioning, that practice, right? It's very on the fly. It's very reflexive. That's the word I'm looking for. Whereas a hybrid, even maybe you don't have arrow coaching you necessarily, but you still have the opportunity. Hey, if something's not going right in a certain fight, we now have a few seconds to talk about how we want to take the next one. Whereas in Control, very fast-paced game mode, it's sort of just go, 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 go. We saw how quickly the Coast Guard had to take fights on Control. It doesn't allow you much opportunity to discuss your game plan and come back from those same sorts of deficits.
Getting the setup coming through, obviously with a new player being substituted in. Make sure all the settings are correct. Make sure everyone is situated. And I mean,
get it all good to go.
Exactly. That's also one of the nice things is while this is happening, right? One of the benefits of getting to play on location is this kind of the setup. You get to still continue talking, even while things are perhaps getting situated properly.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, right? Like sitting beside your teammate, you're pointing over at their monitor, be like, all right, here's what I want you to kind of do, from your perspective.
See that guy? Click his head.
Why haven't you gone into coaching with feedback like that?
Hey, maybe one day. Arrow, call me.
Ready for battle.
No, not so much. Oh boy. All right. Okona starting off on the defense here. No surprises. Not much of a change, really. Still running Blackhawk on the Ramatra. Although actually, now that I've used my eyes and my brain, that's the only thing that hasn't changed. So I will just eat my words on that one. Everything else is quite different here.
I think stylistically very similar, though.
Yeah, I mean, you just have Blackhawk, who's going to be down on the objective a lot of the time. I think Xerxes, especially, is on a really great pick here. The Hanzo defensively for Hollywood right now. Super solid. Pumps in a ton of damage. Can reposition against dives. Has good damage against the rushes. I think very well-rounded and potent pick.
We're seeing the Life Weaver selected here. Is this to kind of just read what's happening and pull him back to spawn? Or are they going to stick around with it?
Looks like Baby's staying on it.
Okay, it's going to be a rotation over the top. Hello.
That's kind of tasty. Oh no, Scotty Nose didn't make it. Oh, and that's a two-player anti. That's brutal. I like the ambition, Coast Guard. That was fun. It looked fun.
They got a pick too, actually.
Okonis ain't falling for it.
You know what? A one fight setup. Maybe you catch them off guard. I don't hate it, right?
If you're not if they're not holding high ground there, if Blackhawk is holding down or drops when he thinks that they're going for the rotation through CCTV, right? Like, there's worlds where that could work.
Yeah, and I mean it costs you like what 10 seconds. I mean, it's a minute in the grand scheme of things, but this is usually when you'd about hit your second fight anyway. So
yeah, this is generally when first fight is ending a lot of the time here. Ooh, nice pick. Night already having to be rezzed. Now, no room for error in Coast Guard, unfortunately. Not able to keep Guido's up. I mean, it is difficult with the Mercy Kiriko here, right? Like, Kiriko is nice for the Suzu in these very much brawly fights, but I think outside of the damage boost for, like, Scotty Nose and Gooby, unless they're getting picks, the Mercy a little bit more difficult to run. Of course, Scotty Nose has gotten one of those picks now.
Actually, this with Xerxes down, that's a lot of the damage pressure onto Guidozan that's no longer there, right?
Yeah.
The Hanzo is such a threat. both for information with the Sonic Arrow, but also because the you know, you can threaten from long range, and the tank eats up a ton of damage. So this is going to allow Coast Guard to get into the objective.
Guido's a little bit low. Nemesis form putting a lot of pressure on him. Dragon Strike at the ready too. Yeah, I think Coast Guard was just a little bit too late to the punch there. That one pick they got on Xerxes, they couldn't quite find the opening to take advantage, and now minute and 45 remain.
I do like that they were trying to go for a fight though, right? It's one of the biggest things in Overwatch is that sometimes when you lose so many fights in a row and you have to consider the first map in that, you know, calculation, it's easy to, you know, get a little nervous on your approach, right?
Sure.
And not want to take a fight. This is a nice off angle from Heroes.
This is cheeky. Doesn't want Guido's Am though. Looking for someone a little squishier. Oh, no one see the combine. No one see it, and there's the rush. Oh boy, anti on Gooby. Done for. Nothing you can do to save him there. I was half expecting Xerxes to throw in the Dragon Strike just for fun there. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. I mean, now final minute of play. This is good. I think the way you approach this with your Coast Guard, right, is have your tank kind of soak damage with both supports. Have Gooby go in and off angle, bob to the point, just for pressure. Because you're gonna see Nano Visor here, 100% from DAF Okonis. It's too easy of a combo, I think, and it should be able to just close out this map. So you need to kind of put pressure on the point to deny that.
Oh, would have been nice if Scotty Knows had the angle on Bing, but Bing, okay, does eventually get found by Gooby. So no Nano for this Visor, and Ranger running up into him. Ill-advised. Davey takes a breath from the fight to res. It can be a little bit risky. You don't have any heals during that time, but good work from Coast Guard to survive regardless, and they're going to get this point moving.
Actually, with Heroes staying alive here, this is really bad. There's no one to teleport to. Okay. Never mind then.
I mean, you're still going to get staggered. You're still, surely you get staggered. Yeah.
Oh, it was close. It was close.
It was close. Close. Another couple feet. 2-3 more seconds. But now Okonis, they have to give quite a bit of space here. They can't fight without Heroes.
Yeah, and the other thing too is now is that with 2.5 minutes left, DAF Okonis, you expect them to kind of win a fight. They might end up overcommitting, right? Because they expected to win that first round. Now they're like, okay, we have to get a fight as quickly as possible. How do we do that? No Nano
boy. No Nano for the attack Visor. Still just pumping in the damage though. It splits Coast Guard very well. Scotty Knows tried to go for a very ambitious push. That being said, Ranger a little bit too far forward. Blackhawk was dealing with the flank instead. And now with Heroes gone, things are looking more and more dire for Okonis. Guidozam on high charge too. Oh, never mind. Not on very high charge. 80 charge here. Blackhawk is done. Unfortunately, 35 makes that a bit more tricky.
I mean, that cost DAF Okonis like multiple ultimates. They weren't even like really winning that fight, right?
No.
Coast Guard, vanilla. They don't have to spend anything. All of a sudden, DAF Okonis. I think this is where, you know, talking about that panic setting in, it's a little bit more. They're going to overspend in this one for sure.
Brad nearly up too. There's a Kitsune rush already from Night Knight. Heroes a little bit nervous to try and answer that one back. Instead, Okonis just trying to peel away from the pressure, but they'll lose Heroes now. Uh-oh, things looking more and more dicey for Okonis. And Nano thrown in, keep Blackhawk in the mix. And it seems to be worthwhile. Yeah, he's going to be able to tank a lot of the damage Guidozam is putting out, and that Bob is not going to get through the Nano in the Nemesis form. Not today.
They're actually so worried about picking around to that Bob. 16 HP. I mean, that's literally one tag from the Bob, so well played. DAF Okonis, they weather the storm. It's impressive stuff. Now, the question is, how do they respond to the Graviton Surge? And I mean, keep in mind, the one thing here is that Coast Guard actually has a sneaky amount of damage they can throw into the grab, especially if Guidozam gets up to high energy. The Dynamite especially is kind of what I'm looking at.
Nasty.
So the Suzu gonna be critical importance.
Oh, Xerxes takes a solid 5 seconds to line that one up, and unfortunately the pulse bomb goes wide. Annihilation's more than enough to clean this fight up though, or at least it should be. Chasing down the back line, supports ever so squishy, and Gooby couldn't quite get out of the range. Okay, smart elevator, but does that just delay the inevitable? Res on to Guidozam, excuse me, does actually keep the Coast Guard in this fight for a second. Scotty Knows needs to get something here. Suzu keeping Heroes alive, but not for long. Now Scotty Knows in the back line, trying to get rid of the tack visor, but the pulse bomb doesn't quite hit its mark. Tack visor does enough damage. And now with just the supports trying to stall this out, it seems that Coast Guard's run will end here on Hollywood.
Still an impressive amount of distance gained, though, by the Coast Guard, right? This is not an unwinnable situation for them as they get into it, right? I think the one thing to highlight is, keep in mind, there was only a minute left on that first point. To gain any percentage is a big deal. To gain that much on second is even better. And I think even the fight that they lost there at the very end, they still gained another 5-10 meters, which on Hollywood, especially with how difficult that corner can be to approach if you control high ground, could be a winnable situation for them.
This is such a cheeky play. I love the attempt at the Life Weaver. It won in my heart, LaFawn. It won in my heart. Do it again on the defense this time. It'll be funny.
Funny doesn't win you games, though, so.
It wins you style points, though.
Yeah, but the conversion rate from style points to wins is so abysmal.
Yeah, you can't really cash in style points at the bank.
Alrighty. Symmetra defensively, hey? I kind of like this, actually.
Wait, they actually have the Life Weaver.
That's spray selection. That spray selection is actually
that is pretty good, actually. Yeah, that's great. Oh my god.
I gotta find out if I have that spray, because that's good.
That's a good spray. The Life Weaver one, man. I love when sprays reference things like that. It's great stuff. All right.
This rush, whoa, Symmetra mirror. The one thing to highlight here is defensive Symmetra is gonna have more advantage setting up the turrets.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a real issue for Blackhawk. The other thing too is Symmetra is better against the Reinhardt than the Ramatra, because you can charge your primary fire up on the shield more frequently.
Cheeky teleport though, gets past all those turrets you were worried about. Oconus, they gotta pick a target. They gotta select who they're going after. All right. Scotty knows, Gooby, they're both run down. Now there's just no damage. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, wow, wow. Oconus not wasting any time. Solid teleport to point. They say, we'll see your Life Weaver shenanigans, and we'll do you one better.
All right.
Nice quick cap.
Yeah, very
5 minutes gonna be on the clock here.
Yeah.
5.5.
All right. High ground control is now going to be the only thing that's going to be important here for the Coast Guard. A little bit of an aerial threat too, actually. I don't hate the selection. The Far Eye is good. I mean, Xerxes, yes, on the soldier is a hit scan, but it's a pocketed Far Eye, right? So it's not a 1v1 that Xerxes is taking here. And even you can see, like, poking around the corner, getting a couple of shots, and these rockets are going to be, even if one of them hits, it just opens things so much quicker for Scotty knows perhaps getting a single shot in.
My only concern here is that the Mercy pocketing the Far directly does leave Guidozam out to hang a little bit. Yeah, not enough healing. Not compared to the Baptiste. Immortality field up under the balcony too. Very safe there. That keeps Bing up despite the pressure coming in from Gooby. And it's a slow march of the payload. Cersei's getting rid of, well, not getting rid fully of Gooby. Shoot the Mercy. That one might go better. Up or team up with you, Lucio. What do I know? All right. Nice little yoink there. At least saves Night Night. You desperately need that Mercy up right now, too. Annihilation pops. Guidozam dealing so much damage, but gotta stay alive. Oh, Life Weaver and Night Night. I mean, Baby and Night Night, rather. Just, there's no way they can keep up with the damage poured out by Oconus. A very quick attack here to get Oconus their first win at the DAF EI.
Really well done by DAF Oconus here as they'll take their first win in their first game. The smiles across the faces of the players. Now, they're hyped up, and rightly so. Yeah. What a performance here. Actually, just a stellar attacking run from them.
Truly. I mean, they just looked well disciplined, right? Which is what you want to see when a team is coached by an ex-Overwatch League coach. Oconus, I mean, sure, there were a couple of fights where, you know, I think ult economy is something that even the strongest of professional teams can flub at times. And that was really the only concern we ever had for Oconus, right? So, excellent stuff from them in their debut match at the DAF Esports Invitational.
And there's one thing to kind of highlight too with a team that's already played a game versus this being your first one. Whether it doesn't matter what you do in practice, right? In scrims and so forth. The first time you step into a game state, on the stage, there's a level of pressure that you just can't deal with unless you've kind of done it before. So the fact that you're playing against a team that has the experience already, even if it's only one game, it does make a difference. It's impressive, I think, from DAF.
Certainly a solid start to their day here. And the Coast Guard, yes, unfortunately, they are down to 0-2 in terms of their standings. They still got several more games to play, though. And even if they end up the bottom seed, keep in mind, that does not mean their tournament is done. It just means they can't get first place. They'll still get a chance to run through a consolation bracket tomorrow. And that's if they get fifth. They could still get third or fourth at that. They just need to really turn it around in their last couple of games.
We do have some fantastic games still yet to come. A quick recap, though, of the stuff that's kind of happened off stream as well. DAF Conus, so the other part of the Air Force team, 2-0'd the Navy as well. So that team stays flawless on that one. So across the, I mean, just to the one thing about the round robin, right, is you get to set the power levels of the teams, who we expect to see perform, who we expect to kind of be our first seed. I think we're getting inklings of that now. Obviously, with the Army's showcase, DAF Conus gets to sit up 2-0. It's looking like that top three going to be falling somewhere in that sort of location, I think.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Oconus, after getting their first win here, they're going to go on to play the Navy in their next game. That'll be the one that is off stream. You folks are going to get the pleasure of watching the Continental United States DAF team. So not Oconus, but Conus, right? They're going to be going up against the Army. I think that is going to be a very tasty match. We're going to a quick break, folks, but when we come back, that absolute burner is going to be ready for you.
Being stationed overseas, it makes it kind of hard to find people to game with. So yeah, through the Air Force Gaming League, I was able to find these teammates and a lot of other people to play with from my base and from all over. So it's, yeah, really awesome opportunity.
It's definitely good to have inter-branch like camaraderie, like getting to know other branches and other people from other branches and see what they do on a day-to-day basis and how that varies completely from what I do from day-to-day, let alone Army or, Air Force, how we have very, very different jobs, very different backgrounds, but we're all in the, same military service, and it's crazy to see how much that can vary. Kind of give you an appreciation for what they do and for what you do. And definitely good to have inter branch like camaraderie, like getting to know other branches and other people from other branches and see what they do on a day-to-day basis and how that varies completely from what I do for day-to-day, let alone Army or Air Force, how we have very, very different jobs, very different backgrounds, but we're all in the same military service, and it's crazy to see how much that can vary. Kind of give you an appreciation for what they do and for what you do. And
I respect everyone on the team. It takes a lot to be able to do your job and then set aside the amount of time to practice out of your free time.
I've always been a competitive player. Like, I have a problem playing things non-competitively. I just have that competitive spirit where I want to win. But I really enjoy the people, and that's the main reason why I stay, because I can always join a different organization, but the people are just out of this world. I love playing with them.
So I've been playing with a lot of these guys for about 2 or 3 years now. Having them sit right next to you is like a really cool feeling to and it sort of like builds that teamwork like while you're sitting next to them.
It's gotten me more involved in the community, whether scrims or even just pugs, and we just play with a bunch of people and just have a good time.
This is the first time meeting the boys, but it's kind of weird because like it doesn't really feel like it because we've just been riffing for so long.
I've played with a few teams in the past. We try and practice as much as we could, but we can never really build synergy. With everyone on the team here, I have better synergy with them than I have with other teams.
I've tried very hard to split myself from my rank when it comes to this team because I don't want them to see me as an officer. I want everyone's voice on the team to be heard, really, and that comes through in the comms, and it helps us synergize better as a team to have that rank-agnostic type playing field for the team.
I've never been to another LAN event. This will be my first LAN event for even witnessing a game, and I'm ecstatic to see like who was all like. I've heard of people like going to be coming and watching us. I just think the whole situation is just really cool, and I'm really proud to just be able to be here.
So this is my first in-person event that I'm competing in. This has always been talked about, the opportunity to be here, to compete in front of an audience, to compete against the other branches.
I think the number one that our whole team is looking out for is the Army.
I'm really looking forward to playing the Army. I've been a part of the Army Esports Discord, and I've seen what they're doing. I know they're putting in a lot of work, so I think it's going to be a really good challenge for us.
They're competent, they're good. We play at the same level. We go back and forth wins and losses, so this time is the time to win.
The fact that it's happening is incredible, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
You know, I never envisioned us actually coming here and like doing this thing in person and like meeting all these people. It's something I would always like pitch, right? And to actually see it like happen is something else entirely. So it's been really a privilege and really fun to be a part of.
Gaming was kind of an outlet for me to give me a break from, day-to-day school, family, or life. As the years went by, I kind of got into more FPS, competitive gaming, work as a team.
I've been playing Overwatch since Overwatch 1. I really enjoyed the characters and how unique they are. I feel like you can relate to them, and the cinematics for Overwatch are amazing. So that really got me into the lore of Overwatch, and I've been playing it since then.
In Overwatch, you're constantly doing something. There's no downtime in the game. Like League of Legends, Overwatch is just go, go, go. So that's what kind of like draws me to the game. And also some of the tank heroes are just really fun because of the mobility they have.
Wasn't like super competitive with it, and that was kind of on the way down, and Overwatch came out, and I loved it, so just started playing it. And then later on I joined the Army, and I was on hold somewhere waiting to go to a class, and just got an email that was like, join our US Army Esports. And I was like, cool. I used to play somewhat competitively on an Overwatch team. Maybe they have Overwatch, and they did, and now I've been on the team for about 3-4 years.
I found the esports team through they send out like mass emails, and so I saw that and I was like, oh, you know, I'm decent at the game, might as well try. And so it was Valorant was what I was playing at the time, and so I tried out and got on the team for that. Ended up just not really liking Valorant overall, and so I quit that and then got back into Overwatch, and I was like, hey, maybe I'll try out for the Overwatch team. Made it on to the Acad team, and then just kept playing and grinding and got enough learned again to back to the GM level and try out for the main team.
There's obviously a stigma in the Army between like enlisted and officers, but I think the gaming program kind of breaks that barrier down. You know, when you're on the team, you know, you're there to win together, and everyone's just a teammate there.
Even though we're playing a game, like we are still all soldiers of the United States Army. We still have to uphold the standards and regulations. In game, like we're teammates, right?
What I'm most excited about would just have to be getting to play in this type of environment. I've seen it so many times, watching like Counter-Strike videos of pros doing their thing, and being able to be a part of it myself is awesome.
This weekend, I'm looking forward to crushing the other services teams and coming out on top. So I'm really excited to be here and see what this is all going to be about.
You know, we're here to win.
Our first couple games here at the DAF Esports Invitational. I almost did it again. At the DAF Esports Invitational, we're kind of quick, dominant, one-sided. This one promises to deliver. Welcome back, folks. It's myself, Possible, and LaFawn. One of us can at least speak English properly, hopefully. And we get a great match, regardless of whether or not I can speak properly. It's going to be Conus DAF, not Oconus, who we just saw, but Conus DAF versus the Army. These are our, well, I mean, 2 undefeated of the 3 technically undefeated teams, but arguably the 2 strongest teams here, LaFawn.
Yeah, and obviously DAF Conus played off stream for their first 2 matches, right? Against the Navy and against the Coast Guard. So this is their first time on stream as well. We got a taste of what the Army squad was able to provide in their first match of the day. So I'm very curious as to how this one kind of shakes out once we get into server.
I mean, this may be their first match on stream at this Invitational. It's not their first time on stream as a team for the Department of the Air Force Gaming in general. These guys played in the DAF Gaming League under the name E-Kittens United not too long ago and absolutely dominated that series. So it's great to see them all get a chance to get on land, get together, and put on a phenomenal show. Facing off in this, again, first on-stream match for today is going to be the Army team. We've seen these guys once already. They were dominant as it came in their game number 1, LaFawn.
And yeah, you really couldn't ask for a better match from them for their first showcase of the day, looking to replicate that performance against one of the better teams to, you know, statistically anyway, here in this round robin. Get a look across the desk here to see how they fare. And I mean, as we get started for you know, game number 1, map number 1, here in our 3rd round of the day, actually, I believe Nepal will be our starting set for this one. That is such a good place to begin.
Nepal is one of those control. I mean, most of the control maps, honestly, have the opportunity to really give us a preview of the rest of our series, of this first to 2 that we're going in between Conus and Army here. But Nepal especially, you know, Sanctum, Village, and of course, Shrine really could not play more differently from each other, each individual stage. Of course, in the modern day of Overwatch, there's been a lot of rush, even across those 3, right? You know, you see the Ramacho rush and things like the Overwatch League pretty frequently, even on Sanctum, surprisingly, sometimes even bypassing like the Winston dive. But again, you have to throw in the Junker Queen. There she is, already rearing her head.
And obviously for the Army, we've gotten a taste of their flexibility, right? They showed a Junker Queen, they showed a Wrecking Ball, they showed a Doomfist as well, and then they had Winston, right? So 4 different compositions in 2 maps, in just 2 maps. So that shows a level of flexibility from them. Wow. DAF Conus, we'll have to see if that level of flexibility comes through. Obviously, the Junker Queen's such a very strong character right now, taking center stage for our first round.
Here we go, folks. Out onto Nepal between DAF Conus and the Army. Slightly different compositions. Both teams agreeing on the Kiriko and the Junker Queen. I mean, when you're running Junker Queen, you got to have the Kiriko both alongside her and against the enemy's Junker Queen. You really want the Suzu to cleanse those antis. Nice little swipe in from Paradox. That's so much damage, so much healing. Konus are getting worked in this first fight. They tried to rotate to somewhere safe, but it wasn't as safe as they hoped.
Look at the ult chart that Paradox generated. That is a first fight ultimate on Junker Queen.
No way, dude.
I mean, so one of the reasons why is we saw the Carnage swings, hefty blows. Carnage gets a 2-second reduction in its cooldown time for every target it hits. Paradox hit 4 every time. Basically instant cooldown on that 8-second ability. Impressive stuff, and I don't think DAF Konus expects this rampage.
There's no way. I didn't expect the rampage. I can see it on top of my screen. That being said, Madmonix is down, so that rampage got to be used pretty soon. Beautiful barrier, too. Denying a lot of the follow-up. Konus, sure, they lose Cyber Pilot. They can still try and play for this, though. It's going to be hard without knees. Dark Fox does have quite a bit of healing himself. It's just a battle of the Junker Queens, but one is supported by Guardian. Paradox is winning.
I really like Paradox's discipline there. Saw the Suzu used, waited till that came through, even down a player, and then went for the rampage, right? It's so difficult when you lose a player early, knowing you're going to try and commit to the fight. You kind of try to, force an issue, but there, just waited till that cooldown came through, and then went in with a rampage, and there was nothing DAF Konus could do in response.
Gravy with the Pulse Bomb now, too. Guardian down early. Gravy's got to get something done. Pulse Bomb lobbed in, completely dodged. Easy for Konus to avoid that one, and Risky getting on top of Magmonix makes things more and more difficult for the army to try and hold this. Gravy TP's across to the point, but can't stand up to Risky hitting these shots. The rest of Konus dancing around, tiptoeing still. Fighting the Junker Queen in that close proximity is still a difficult task. Yeah, Knees will find that out the hard way. And while the flip comes through, it's not very stable for Konus right now. They'll have to throw in the Sound Barrier, get back to the point. A Death Blossom and everything, but no, a Sound Barrier and a Suzu perfectly coordinated by Guardian and Luna to get the army back in nice and quick.
That is such a spectacular performance by the backline there from the army. The risk, I mean, the absolute trust in Luna there. As soon as the Death Blossom comes in, knowing this, that their counter support, that Guardian's going to have the Suzu in time, just goes for the Sound Barrier. If Guardian doesn't hit that, that is an Ajax. There is no question in my mind on what faith in their teammate.
So risky to lose the beat there. Now at least a Kitsune Rush gives him a chance, but not much of a chance. Paradox is just a force of nature. And with the wind of his back himself from a rush of his own, army with a really strong start to Nepal.
I mean, what a statement fight. What a statement round, actually, from the army. We heard in that interview right at the start that DAF Konus is looking forward to playing this squad to see how they stack up. And I mean, hey, this first one shows that the army is definitely going to try and be that first place team.
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, DAF Konus, when they were under the name I can never say it with a straight face, E-Kittens United. They won the DAF Gaming League, if I remember correctly. So this is a very powerful team in their own right.
Yeah, experienced as well, right?
Very experienced, even with competition at this level. So for them to be down one stage already, tricky place to come back from. A slight adjustment too from the army here. Magmonix over to the castle.
Play a little bit closer to your team, right? Dash has much more sight lines in this map.
Nice little pull. Ooh, yeah. Paradox getting the commanding shout out, or other way around rather. Dark Fox getting the shout out of Paradox. A little bit slow to try and follow up on it though. Not quite as aggressive as I thought Konus might be. Cyber Pilot taking a heap of damage. Konus want to just try and dig into the objective with a wall. They'll at least get this first point capped. Gravy on the flank, harrying the backline, keeping Dark Fox on his toes too, but Paradox down. That'll be the dominoes falling. Nothing to stop Konus' push out.
I really like the the space gained by DAF Konus there. They saw what happened to them in that first fight on Sanctum, right, where Paradox was able to swing through with a Carnage through multiple players. This time they don't allow the Junker Queen to get that level of value. And instead, now, I mean, Dark Fox and Paradox in lockstep, ult-wise, right? So just a good adaptation here, playing around the Mei a little bit better, playing for point control rather than trying to take an all-out brawl, and that's going to give them a pretty decent lead here, actually.
Good understanding of their composition from Conus there. Don't get too ambitious despite the cooldown advantage once again. Paradox actually using that commanding shout first. Here comes the pulse. It's lobbed in, but it doesn't really hit squat. And Paradox falls first yet again. Conus doing a much better job on this second map so far. They're already up pushing 60%. And they're way ahead in ults as well.
This is such a delayed fight, too, from the Army. Guardian gets one, but I mean, you're trading a fight reset for an elimination. That's not worth it, in my opinion. And that means that with this taxi back, DAF Conus are actually heading into last fight territory.
Gravy over to the Genji now, too.
Ooh. This is risky against the Mei.
Yeah. Very difficult to make work. No way to deflect the slow. You can get pinned down very easily. Here comes a rush. It's answered right back, and a nice ice wall, too. Griffin separates the Army's momentum, and then a later sound barrier in from Cyberpilot means that DAF are going to be feeling healthy much, much longer. Paradox finds that out the hard way. Burned down rather quickly. 96% already, and so many ults still sitting in the pocket. Blizzard, Rampage, not even needed for Conus to wrap this up. Answer back against the Army and send us to a third stage of control for the first time today.
I mean, you take one punch across the face, and then you reply with one of your own on the second round. What a reply by DAF Conus here to head to our third round. That is genuinely a spectacular showcase. Yeah, you can see Cyberpilot there. Excitement on, or just the, kind of the relief almost to kind of have that kind of statement return.
Especially after the first stage was so one-sided the other direction. To be able to answer back with 100-0 so quickly, right? That gives you a little bit of confidence, right? Especially when you're playing up against a new team in a very new setting like this. It's LAN. You got to get those jitters out. Even if there's not, 10,000 people in a stadium audience, right? LAN games hit different, folks.
Of course, this is DAF Conus' first time on stream. So the fact that knowing your game is streamed is also part of that, negotiation in terms of presence.
Again, these guys were playing in the DAF Gaming League, so the stream is one thing. Stream with cameras and everything, that can hit very different though. Ooh, already a solid start. Paradox pumping in the damage again. Risky, Griffin, everyone from Conus already so low. It's Knees who's the target. Yeah, get rid of the Kiriko. Guarantee a fight win.
That was set up by Mechronics. The Dynamite in early puts a lot of damage down range.
Dynamite carnage, dude.
Yeah, it forces so many cooldowns to begin with. And I mean, Paradox, I would say, is more of the pressure reliever in that situation, right? Just means that it's a target that everyone in DAF Conus has to kind of focus on. It opens up the rest of the team, the rest of the Army squad to play their game.
Sure.
That kind of slows things down now.
Gravy onto the sim too. Gravy's played so many characters today. Just selecting mystery heroes.
Contest.
Okay, free flip. Conus have point control now, and that's exactly what the Mei comp wants. Paradox taking tons of damage every time he peeks his head around the corner. Ooh, okay, Risky with a bit of an odd wraith form there. Magmonic's not able to ping down Knees, and there's that Rampage coming through. Dark Fox tries to throw in one of his own, but it is far too little and far too late. No way to turn this fight around.
That's the power of of Gracie, right? Throwing the knife out, dragging someone around a corner, it forces defensive cooldowns. You're caught staring 5 players with no one on your team, right? Risky's forced to use the Wraith form, and what that means is that the Rampage is therefore that much more uncontested. It forces the Suzu, etc., and now Army in a great position to slow this game down.
Hard to push through the photon barrier too. That's the exact kind of slowing down we want to see from the Army while they have this control. Risky, oh, not done for. Okay, sound barrier used to invest and keep that Reaper alive. It's going to be answered right back by Luna the second that Blizzard comes in, though. It's not quite enough against the Blizzard. There's a lot of damage pumped on in. 3v4. Army still in favor. Do they want to invest their rush here? They're not going to need to. Paradox good to take out Risky. And while Dark Fox is hard to kill, very hard to kill at that, just not going to pump out the same kind of damage as 3 players from Army.
It forced the Rampage, actually. This is not done yet.
Wait a minute here. Wait, nobody killed Dark Fox. Paradox went so deep. Okay, comes back to kill Dark Fox finally. And even without supports, I mean, that self-healing is just so much. Risky tries to get on the point, but DPS still hanging around, and now we're up to 85 for Army.
What an engagement, though. And I think now, if DAF Conas can get a contest in, they should be able to. I think we're looking at Risky most likely. There's still a fight. There's still an opportunity for them to win this, right? Death Blossom, Kitsune Rush as well.
And Cyber Pilot gets the touch. That's the pivotal moment there. Kitsune Rush on the point as well for knees now, too. Army, they don't have a way to contest this. They don't even really want to try with Guardian down. It's just a question of how much do they give up here, Army. No, only the one pick. They're going to be back quick.
I mean, DAF Conas needs to kind of find these stragglers, right? They cannot allow them to exist freely here. Risky,
nice.
That's a good pick. That's a really good pick. That slows it down, right? Because Army was trying to, you know, sort of keep map control there. They had a player stayed on the high ground. This ends up just wasting their own time because of Risky finding out, you know, that individual. So a really good read. Actually, with that being said, DAF Conas not content with that. They're going for more.
Another good read there, too, from DAF. Stopping the push down low, then rotating back to the point. Oh, Risky gets annihilated. Guardian with the kunai. We were talking about him earlier. Those headshots are tasty. I mean, try to throw in the rampage here. Dark Fox good for at least one. Cyber Pilot keeping him in the game with a sound barrier, but it's only him and Dark Fox that get hit by it. They need another pick, and there's too much damage. Dark Fox not able to keep it going. A valiant effort from Conas, but unless Risky gets the craziest Death Blossom I've ever seen in my life, it's got to be done and dusted. Wraith form at least gives him a chance to touch, but not much more than that. Asuzu keeps Paradox on his toes. I mean, DAF, they're hanging on best they can. But it just wasn't meant to be here. The Army is going to be taking round 3 and map 1, giving themselves a lead in our first to 2 series. Takes them a sec to clean up Conas, but they'll get it done on Nepal.
Still, we set this up as a very competitive map at the top of the round, and that is exactly what was delivered here in our first map of Nepal. That being said, DAF Conas will have to head to map selection. They'll elect to go where we go next. Nonetheless, I really like the adaptation both these teams are making in real time. Yeah. I mean, here's that first fight where Paradox hits multiplayer carnages multiple times in a row, and then nowhere else in the map was Paradox allowed to do that, right? Just a good read by DAF Conas.
It's one of those plays where at the very beginning, DAF Conas, right? They're like, oh yeah, we got this. Don't worry. Yeah, we'll go for this. But oh, okay, we can't do that one again. Paradox turns out pretty good. And then, I mean, the second round was so much focus on Paradox, right? Yeah. Paradox was dying first, I think 3 out of the 4 fights we saw in this map.
And then actually that shows the adaptation from the Army heading into round number 3, right? Where Paradox just played a little bit more passively, still took attention, but was able to kind of ping pong off their supports. You know, he was able to kind of stay alive, and that is what really made the difference for the Army in this third round.
Especially with Magmonix and Gravy, right? I feel like those are much more consistent damage threats in this composition as long as Magmonix is hitting his shots compared to the Reaper May, which has really good point control, really nice close quarters fighting. I mean, you see it right here, you know? But a little bit less, you don't get that same sort of ramp out of the Reaper, right? And the Ashe obviously dealing more damage, especially against rush compositions. You know, we saw it on this last map, on that very first Dynamite, but almost every Dynamite, honestly, from Magmonix. Really solid stuff.
We've talked about the ult game too, right? Bob is a really strong ability in 5v5.
You get your 6th player back.
Yeah, having that extra presence is just never mind the damage, having that extra health on the objective to contest, right? Just makes things so much more worrisome. And then you add the damage into that, all of a sudden, it's a big threat. Meanwhile, Death Blossom, fairly easy to kite, right? You don't really see a lot of big Death Blossom plays these days. And obviously, there's a lot more damage mitigation in the game. We saw Suzu, but even just the good reads by the Lucio players, I think, is denying that too. Soundwave to create space, speed to get you far away. And all of a sudden, the Reaper, you're not that great in the neutral. You're not that great in the ult game. And that just puts you in a weaker position overall.
So now we move on to a map number 2. We move on to Hollywood. And you gotta wonder if the game plan here for DAF Conus actually does revolve around this high ground, actually does pull into the dive, right? Because there's obviously, anytime you go to a map as vertical as, you know, your Hollywoods, your Gibraltars, right? Dive's gonna be in the conversation. But it's how much is it in the conversation, especially when the prominent tank right now at the highest level of Overwatch on the live patch, which is what we're playing on, is Junker Queen, right? Even on the patch before this, we saw the top teams in the world using Junker Queen against those high ground control styles, right? Against the dive to control, to deal so much damage onto things like the Winston or the Diva, right? So do you really want to try and run dive into a potential Junker Queen regardless of the high ground? Or do we just go over to the Ramatra? I mean, that works too, I guess.
Well, keep in mind the first point is mostly low ground control. And even the high ground that is available does have rotation tools, right? The stairway through Cafe, the stairway through, you know, the alleyway in by the attacker's perspective. So Rush works a lot better here. Once we get to second, that's where things become a little bit interesting. Also, the Army electing to attack first here. That is extremely unique. We don't see that very frequently.
Not very often.
Keep in mind, losing team picks the next map, and then the winning team picks the side. So the Army chose to go to the offense first.
Paradox with a swap here over onto the Winston as well. I believe this is the 5th tank hero that we've seen Paradox play today.
Yeah, I mean, Doom, Ramatra, Doom, Junker Queen, Winston.
Yeah. Ooh, risky. Okay. Sombra applying some pressure, but good peel from Cyber Pilot and Neat.
Oh!
Keeps that one up. Nice shot from... Yeah, actually, it was Griffin there.
A combo,
Risky
right?
helps out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the team fire. And I think Risky sometimes living up to the name, right?
I was going to say that that's a very ambitious balcony to play on for so long. Does eventually retreat back. Nice boop, too. Really well done by... I believe it was Cyber Pilot. Could have been Griffin, honestly. Either way, damage is the same, and then another boop. They just don't let Paradox up to the high ground. Magmonic's trying to get some damage done at range. Doesn't quite work out, but at least Paradox finally gets up top of the Cafe. Dark Fox hanging on to the point best he can. Needs the support to come back around and assist. Cyber Pilot will be the one to do that. Just messing around with Gravy in the back line, keeping that Tracer on her toes. And while he does, Paradox falls. And then Dark Fox cleans it up.
I really like how DAF Conus is juggling attention here, right? Army is looking for ingress into an individual, and there simply isn't a single player to kind of focus on, right? Every time you try and, you know, find the squishy target like Cyber Pilot, Griffin's there to back up with damage, or Knees is there with the Bionade. So it's just really good juggling of attention here by DAF Conus. And Army needs to find an individual target to assassinate and stay alive as a 5-player unit.
Oh, Luna taking so much damage flung at a CCTV as well. A pretty aggressive Nemesis form to try and punish Magmonix. Oh, couldn't quite find him though. At least it's a good shot from Risky to get rid of Gravy. Risky trying to put the work in while Paradox is slapping around his friends in the back line. Eventually, Paradox comes back over and deals with that Sojourn. 3v3 here. But Army have much closer respawns. They can regroup.
I mean, the problem is that you still have the Nano Boost and the Annihilation combo in tow, and Knees will absolutely be back in time to set that up.
Paradox going in nice and deep. Where do we see this Kitsune rush is the question. Most likely just on the objective. There it is. Someone give Dark Fox the Nano. There it is. Nano Annihilation. Impossible to survive. Magmonix and Luna find that out the hard way, and Paradox just not able to do squat on the back end of that fight.
That being said, this is the critical opportunity for Army. This is the best fight that they're going to have on this side of the offense because they have the Bob. It's going to be Bob v. Bob contests. So we draw those out. The question is, how do you survive the extended HP bar that Army will have with this sound barrier? Because DAF Conus, they used everything, essentially, in that last skirmish. How well can you stay alive in that health pool?
This is the last chance for Army, though. Less than a minute remaining now. Deep chase from Paradox to try and get on top of Risky, but can't quite chase him down. Cyber Pilot going over to bail him out, but that makes himself vulnerable. Now all of DAF is ever so low, and that sound barrier, like you said, it parades Army all the way through point A.
nonetheless. That was DAF Conus extending to those final moments, right? I mean, 30 seconds is essentially that overtime bar, and with that, we're gonna see that reset come in. I think Gravy's still. Yeah, I think Gravy's still in the backline, just trying to farm up to this EMP. Right? They want to keep the snowball going, ult-wise, and the EMP would be a big start towards that.
Yeah, I mean, Hack's the health pack right behind Conus too. I mean, that makes it tough to contest this high ground reliably. Oh, I mean, yeah, that doesn't really work, Gravy. I know you're invisible, but the lift doesn't work on its own, bud. It's not a ghost.
Imagine if Gravy was allowed to get up there for free, though. That would be even funnier.
That'd be wild. Just insane. Paradox again poops. Not able to get up on top of the high ground. Ooh, Risky trying to chase in for that pick on Magmatics, but didn't have enough charge. Couldn't quite find the angle, and now the Primal Rage shucking people off the high ground. Dark Fox left to his own devices on the cart, too. This is not going well for Conus. They're going to try and get out and regroup, but Army look to hunt them down.
Paradox is just being allowed to just take space in the map. Even with these boops.
This is somewhat ambitious, but at least Cyber Pilot does get one. Griffin can get back up on that high ground. No knees. Okay, yeah, I mean, that should be it. And this is all the while just been slow progress for Army as Conus haven't really regrouped.
And now here's where the EMP steps in, right? This is where Gravy can kind of just end things.
Oh, yeah, 3 tags with that. Cyber Pilot instantly done. Risky lives long enough to pull out the overclock. Hang on. Oh, if that was a hit, it would have worked. And it still does. Guardian didn't get far enough away. Paradox shuts down the overclock eventually, but not in time for his team to keep going. 1 minute, 10 seconds left.
I mean, DAF Conus, despite giving up a lot of presence on the point, are still doing a good job of forcing Army to take awkward engagements, right? That EMP caught 3, yes, but who was there to follow up? It was just Paradox, and I mean, sure, you expect the Winston to get 1, which is what Paradox did. Just a good read, though, by Risky to step back, a portion and get those eliminations with the overclock. And now the Nano Annihilation is himself.
Nano Annihilation is going to be hard to break through. I'd like to see a rush quick here from Army, try to outpace it, but they can't outpace Squat when they don't got a speed boost. Goodbye, Luna. Okay, 1 pick there from Griffin, or onto Griffin, rather.
The game has kind of entered into a little bit of chaos here. Cyber Pilot, oh boy,
in so much trouble there. Really nice pick. That was off the info from an invisible Gravy. Now the Annihilation and the Nano are out, but is that even enough at this point? There's no one to support it. Dark Fox sure has so much of a damage threat, but Army just run away. They don't have to deal with that. Another Nemesis form for Dark Fox and a Bob in desperation from Griffin, but it overshoots the objective and isn't able to contest. Army just walking the payload to the end of the second point in overtime now. Dark Fox barely gets back in time and still has the Nemesis form. Another rotation, another chance, but not against an EMP. Not even with a rally from Cyber Pilot. It's not nearly enough. Army, hold on, knees popping off and getting 2. Hello, now Conus have another breath, another chance, and they make it happen. They stop Army in their tracks.
Better backline.
Yeah, give yourself a round of applause for sure. What a comeback fight there by
give knees a pat on the back. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, listen, good read by one of the things about Overwatch, right? A good plan is good, but a bad plan that everyone does is better.
That's true. That is true.
And I mean, listen, DAF Conus all bought in on that recontest. Everyone was there. We saw the instant cycle of the Nemesis form by Dark Fox to buy time. It forces the EMP, right? And the follow-up damage just isn't there. And then, of course, I mean, it comes down to mechanical play and knees hitting consistent headshots there with the kunai. There's just no response. And the Army, it's just a fantastic setup by DAF Conus, and Army had no response.
Really wild stuff there. I had all but written Conus' defense of that second point off. And yet they swing it back around. Army going back to the tried and true, what worked for them on map number 1.
I think one thing we have to highlight, though, is that the Army a lot more chaotic in that second phase of the map, right? Paradox on a solo mission. honestly a lot of the Army players on solo missions in sort of that setup. Meanwhile, DAF Conus play together as a 5-player unit, and that's going to have to change, right? Army, now they move to a rush-based composition. You're forced to kind of play together. We'll see if that kind of coalesces some of those stray moments that that happen on that second phase.
Conus sticking with the Ramashra rush too. Griffin does swap over onto the Sombra himself. Gravy back on the Genji. I don't know if I really love the Genji here. I mean, I guess it synergizes with the Ana that you already have, right? But yeah, knees, dude. You gotta calm down just a little bit, bud. Or don't. Keep pumping in the damage. Paradox very much on the back foot here. Both Guardian and Luna pumping in the heals to try and keep that up. Nice pick from Gravy. Solid anti from Luna, but unfortunately not around to try and get up to another one. He's now going for the duel against Guardian, but it's not a 1v1. Gravy's trying to get in the mix. Oh, and will regret it too. Gravy says, hang on. You're not going to respect my 1v1. You're not going to respect the Kiriko fight. That's Gravy.
So I actually like that play from Knees on a tactical level. One of the things that the Junker Queen is so good at in this patch is if she gets any small amount of healing, snowballing that into being able to survive through so much, right? By taking away the attention of the support, it allows Dark Fox to actually win the tank duel. So it's not even about the duel with the Kiriko. It's really about winning that the macro game as well.
Not only is it good for the, you know, the bragging rights, but it's also good for the team's bragging rights, both an individual and a team play move. You'll love to see it. And I mean, Army, they're just completely kept out of this fight. They got to get something out of their ults coming up here.
It's a very explosive fight. The big thing is Army should win this one. It's how much do they overspend is my big question.
Rampage at the ready. Gotta be careful with the Rampage, though. You'd ideally like to get the Suzu out of Knees first. Here comes a Kitsune rush, too, and Luna's gone in an instant. Cyber Pilot low, but can hold up the big IMAX shield, at least for a time. Carnage cuts through it. And now goes back to deal with Dark Fox. Here comes a Rampage. It does hit Dark Fox, and that should secure the fight. But you were talking about overspending, LaFawn. It ends up being a 2-for-2, so not the worst thing in the world for the Army.
The big thing is the Rampage Kiriko, right? The Kitsune rush. Now, the thing here is Nanoblade. But one thing we've already seen from DAF Conus on this map is how good they are at cycling knockback to prevent players from engaging. And that's what I'm most worried about here for Gravy. How do you get in against the, against the whip shot here that Cyber Pilot is so good at hitting?
I mean, if Cyber Pilot's dead, that helps. Don't got to worry about it then. Already one cut down by the blade. Now chunking into the tank. Griffin should be able to translocate out of this in theory. But I guess theory's all well and good, but it doesn't get you fight win.
Good fight by Army, Nanoblade. I mean, DAF Conus reply by just dying. Right? They don't
spend anything. Now EMP's up.
But now EMP's up. And here's the thing. Oh, no, no,
Come
no.
on, Knees. You gotta calm down, dude. Risky already having to use the recall isn't ideal. So it is a 4v4. EMP having to be invested just on Paradox to ensure that this fight is going to go the right way.
I mean, that's the Rampage taken out of the duel, though.
Bob thrown in. Wow, okay. Army's still trying to commit to this fight, but with Gravy falling, I mean, this Bob's not going to do much against a Sombra that can just hack it. It's just annoying as it stops some cart progress.
It stalls just enough for Paradox to get back to the Rampage, but I mean, now you've got the Annihilation here. Risky still hovering with a Pulse Bomb.
And there's so much time here for DAF Conus. Annihilation gonna get popped. Get aggressive. Why not? Force resources out of Army and a Pulse Bomb lobbed in. Doesn't hit as much as it looked like it would have. Dark Fox falling too makes things a bit tricky. Paradox coming back in with a Rampage. Cleansed immediately. Knees denying any value of that ult. Throwing in a Kitsune rush of his own too. Things getting dicey for the Army. They do have close respawn, so they're able to regroup, but they're going against double support ultimates now with a rally online from Cyber Pilot. We need to see some focus fire, and there it is. It comes in on Paradox. Conus steamrolling their way. They still got over 2 minutes, but they won't need it. A matter of time now before they secure this, and they'll walk it in for our first time today, folks. We're going to a map 3.
All right. I want to highlight Cyber Pilot in that last fight. We've been talking so much about Knees in that support duo, right? Overall, because, and rightly so, Knees hitting some fantastic kunai. But the attention with that whip shot, the decision making to hit the rally, and then facing Paradox dead on, quickly shift attention over to the Tracer instead to guarantee elimination.
Yeah.
I mean, just a great read there from the support player. And,
honestly, the supports of Conus have just been on fire today.
Yeah. And I mean, that I will also say, as close as the first map was, right?
Yeah.
This is an interesting thing. I think when both teams are at their best, they're absolutely handling their opposition. That's the thing. It's close score-wise, but in individual rounds, not so much.
It lopsides very quickly to one team or the other.
And now that makes me more interested to see for the first time, actually, where is Army going to go? Like,
yeah,
what is their map
today?
Yeah. So first escort map, first time Army's picking the map. Right.
I mean, it's just thinking through the escort maps available, right? You know, we got Rialto, Junkertown, Shambali Monastery, and Havana. Honestly, I think outside of Junkertown, you can pretty much go to any of those. The rush is going to be fine there. That's mostly been what Army has opted into. Of course, we did see a little bit of the Winston from Paradox, but I think the Winston's struggled a little bit. I think Winston right now is just going to struggle in comparison, especially in comparison to just how good Paradox has been on the Junker Queen.
Yeah.
Not that the Winston was like bad. It was just easier for DAF Conus to control.
And I mean, you know, let's talk the supports up a little bit more. They're deciding where Paradox gets to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. The whip shot obviously is a big deal, but even their spacing, like a lot of approach by teams is dependent on where your opponent is set up. Right. If your opponent is set up on the high ground and you're playing dive, you have to kind of stage from, level playing field. So you dive from high ground to high ground. Driving low to high is so difficult because you're going in blind. It's tough to set up cooldowns, etc. And I think one thing that DAF Conus did really well in Hollywood is that they played their supports passively enough that the approach angles that the Army wanted to take were forcing them to overextend. Right? Paradox going in and just a second too late was the DPS. And so, by that point, Paradox has lost half his HP and, well, the fight's over. So you have to consider that when we talk about support play as well. It's not just about the mechanics, but their positioning has been stellar on top of it.
And we end up on the one place I didn't think we were going to go. Out of all the options, this was the only one I picked. I somehow picked the only incorrect one. It's pretty impressive of me if I do say so myself.
Well, you know what they say, if you have 100%, if you pick incorrectly 100% of the time, it's like
exactly. Yeah, I'm like Spider-Man. An interesting choice from the Army, but I mean, also considering how flexible Paradox has been today.
Yeah.
It's not that surprising, right? Hey, maybe the rush isn't working out. Maybe the Junker Queen is starting to get downloaded by Conus a little bit. Let's switch things up entirely. If Paradox is comfortable on the Sigma, Gravy Magmonics, cool move into the snipers. No harm in trying out a completely new style. And hey, if this doesn't work, you can always try and go back to the dive and get on top of Knees or Cyber Pilot way far in the back line.
There is some interesting things here for DAF Conus, though, is that we haven't seen them run like core hit scan yet, and we still haven't. Right, as we see the Tracer Sojourn. So, also Cyber Pilot flexing a little bit off the main support now for the first time. This has to be McMonix's game. There's no one to really contest you consistently.
Yeah, I mean, there's no true snipers here for DAF Conus, right? Like, Griffin has some sniping potential, but it is far less consistent. You get, for every shot Griffin is taking, Magmonix is taking about 10. It's going to be pretty tough. A lot of pressure already in. With Luna down so early, though, does make it a little bit difficult. Okay, all supports are just off the board. Who's fragging? Who's pumping in damage? I need to see some numbers. Ooh, Gravy trying to. Fox keeps it steady. The problem is here that Army will have significantly closer respawn. So Paradox doesn't really have to take this fight. Can just sort of survive for the reinforcements.
I like the switch from Gravy.
Yeah.
Because it's now you keep Risky in check, right? You mark the Tracer. It also means that Griffin has to keep their head on a swivel, and McMonix gets a little bit more free ground to fire in shots.
Risky right now. More support, concerned with the supports, and Griffin assisting there. Magmonix gets rid of the enemy tracer, so there's a chance. Luna already so low once again. Oh, but couldn't quite finish them off. Dafconis not able to turn that corner and get on top of Luna. That gives Army everything they need to get this first point well underway.
Just more tools to kind of ping pong off of here on the Army side with Gravy Luna the Tracer, right? I mean, one fight now has a pulse bomb.
Yeah,
really well done. I think the other thing to well, the other thing to highlight here is that the reason why bringing the Tracer frees up Magmonix so much more frequently is that Magmonix does not care about playing mid-range, right? In fact, Magmonix would prefer not to. So with that being the case, because Gravy's going to start marking Risky a little bit, Magmonix plays so far back that you have to overcommit to contest them.
Risky jumped in. Okay, that was certainly something. Tight shot. Does get punished. Dark Fox with that. Nice gravitic flux. Oh my word, it just chews through him. Even an immortality field would never have been enough there. Army simply ain't slowing down.
They're not going to be contested on the second point at all. It's just that one fight. Couple changes. Magmonix over to the Cassidy.
We're looking at quite a 5-minute time bank going into the last.
The only thing to highlight, though, is Army had to use basically everything on that fight, right? And third point is so difficult to capture. You can get stalled out a ton, and on top of that, Dafconis is switching over to the Brawl, rather.
They have to.
Yeah, they're going to be able to slow down so much time because who on Army is going to really try and play Dark Fox these days? Maybe Paradox, but that's a pretty risky bet to make.
But even this comp, I mean, when do you take this fight, right? Like, you have to wait all the way until they get to the turn. Griffin needs to be a bit careful, too. Magmonix over on the Cassidy now still has some good damage. Oh, Guardian gets out of the way. Griffin having to chase so deep to try and push that one and still can't quite turn these corners. Can't quite find the timing of the angles. Oh! Risky at least getting some Tracer 1v1 admonishment on his belt. Beautifully done. And now charging in to try and deal damage, but his front line evaporates.
Man, that was so close to being a mental switch for Dafconis. There's something extremely demoralizing as a Tracer to be stuck.
Getting stuck and dying to it, yeah.
But Army quickly turn that on the head and don't allow that moment to kind of exist in time. They quickly and swiftly eliminate the rest of the Army team. They just kind of win out the fight like that. Now, we're in the last moments of this match.
They're spawn camping borderline at this point. Paradox is just walking up to the doors and chucking the hyperspheres down the corridor. Here comes the Nemesis form. That's some damage, but Paradox really doesn't feel much phased by it. Risky in the back. Loses to Guardian, who just kicks him right in the face. An Annihilation now in desperation. A Nano to give Dark Fox more damage, more health, but Knees falls to get that done. Okay, finally Dark Fox gets an opening here for Conus to stabilize. 2 gone, close respawns, and another Nemesis off the cooldown. A sliver of an opportunity for Conus.
I mean, that's still Dark Fox. You have to give a lot of credit to the rotation of abilities there. Nemesis to get HP, Annihilation for extra HP, and then the next Nemesis to keep alive. Because if Dark Fox had gone down there, that would have been the full cap, right?
Undoubtedly.
Army also invest in that fight thinking that they have an opportunity. So they're back to being extremely vulnerable economically.
Still plenty of time for Army, though. 2 minutes, 40 seconds, and they barely got 10 meters to go. And he's gone so early again. The Kiriko was hitting so hard, but this Ana has been getting bullied by Gravy, Luna, and Magmonix. Risky, you need a pulse. Nothing else is going to cut it right here. Immortality field is out. Can you survive long enough to get this done? Pulse goes wide. Luna up in the air is easy to hit, though. Cyberpilot and Risky will team up for that one. Paradox now with no legs to, I guess, float on as the Sigma. Not much healing. Kinetic Grasp keeps him up, but the Orb of Harmony simply isn't enough, especially against an Ant Matrix. Gravy trying to get something done, but it's too late for it.
What? I mean, that is just so close in those final moments. Guardian will get one revenge kill, but it's not enough. DAF Conus are bending but not breaking here in these final stages of the game, right? I mean, we were on board for that entire fight with Risky, and well, we should have. You know, juggling attention there, buying time for the respawns to get back. DAF Conus, they have an opportunity to take more time away. Bob here is going to be critical. But I mean, Army, playing their cards right. This is all about comboing the Gravitic Flux. Likely into the Deadeye, actually.
Nothing to really stop the Gravitic Flux either outside of
the mech.
Perfect Suzu. Dark Fox narrowly staying inside the mech. Still a ways away from the self-destruct too, so needs to play his life carefully. Here comes that Gravitic Flux. It's nice, it's tight, it's in the corner, but it's a low ceiling. The Suzu does land, and oh, almost Conus get all the way out of there. A valiant effort by Conus. They've stalled some time. Only 1 minute remaining out of the 5 that Army started with. But this stall is going to be pretty darn difficult. Cyber Pilot gets to the point just barely. Same with Knees, but not much more they can do.
I mean, that's a 10x reduction in time, though. From 5 minutes to 50 seconds.
It's fucking hard.
Pretty impressive showcase there from DAF Conus overall. And remember, this is Army's selection. This is Army's map pick coming into this. So clearly strong on this one, right? We saw what a handle they had on the first 2 points. And yet, I don't think if you're DAF Conus that you're that upset with the final outcome of the attacking rounds of this map, right? Now it's your turn to set the stage.
It's one of those things where you'll definitely look back at your first 2 points of defense and be like, all right, we should have played that better. But to be able to stabilize for 4 minutes so well, that keeps your morale up, right? It's like, okay, we lost the threat a little bit. We got lost in the sauce, but we came back. Now there's a chance. It's hard. It's not going to be an easy map for Conus to win. They got a cap with quite a bit of time if they want to contest what Army was able to do here, but it's no longer out of the realm of possibility thanks to a solid 3rd-point defense.
Yeah, I mean, for the Army, right? Amounts of frustration in that final point, right? You're so close to breaking over that finish line. 10 meters, right? Between you and completion for multiple fights in a row. You just can't quite get it in time. And I mean, that also plays an element of it. Now, how does the Army reset coming into their defensive half? How well can they kind of just put that behind them? Because even as much as we're talking about DAF Conus kind of resetting, capturing Junkertown at all, really impressive.
Absolutely. And this first point does feel like it's going to be among the more difficult for DAF Conus. They didn't demonstrate much of an ability on the Sigma in the entire map. The Sigma, the snipers, and such. So certainly a tricky situation for DAF Conus. Got to rely on Griffin and Risky to come up with the goods, get themselves a pick.
There's also a bit of a difference here is that Magmonix actually has a worse place, or is in a worse stature because of the Sonic era. Meanwhile, Gravy's going to try and put pressure onto the Widow. And you're kind of trading information for damage pressure.
Paradox trying to control the high ground. Hanzo's a great tank threat too, right? Like Griffin doesn't just have pick potential, but will keep Paradox on his toes.
Yeah, you have shield advantage if you're DAF Conus for sure.
At least you should, right? Especially with how aggressive Paradox is getting. But Conus is struggling to find a real angle to get into this one. Some good spam damage coming through. An early kinetic grass doesn't get much shielding. Dark Fox has made it past the choke, but where's the rest of Conus? They're all stuck so far back because they're afraid of Magmonix and Gravy coming up behind them.
We need to start seeing the Storm Arrow be used more aggressively from Griffin. Paradox should not be allowed to live up on this high ground without really being contested, right?
I almost want to see a swap back over onto the Tracer here so that Gravy isn't such a threat. Gravy right now is largely uncontested, is constantly harassing Knees.
Also, I will also say that Magmonix has had the better advantage in this situation.
Yeah.
This literally a 60% difference in ult charge when Magmonix got their visor.
Yeah. The Infrasight there up much quicker, and that's a great stall tool. Risky eventually realizes, hey, this Widow 1v1's not going great. I just got picked out of the air on my grapple shot, so I think I'm going to go over to the Tracer, try to keep Gravy more in check. So many ults up, though, for Army.
The game has slowed down.
Ant Matrix.
No one can
and only a minute 40. Now that Infrasight we were talking about, that's going to stall a solid 15, 20 seconds off the clock here.
That's why there's a
Who's contesting Magmonix? Risky on the
No
flank.
one. No one. Not when Risky's dying. Not when Gravy's got his number. Here comes the Ant Matrix just for kicks. Throw it in, get aggressive, get yourself some picks, get more time off the clock. Sure, DAF, they're finally coming up to ults of their own, but they only got a minute left. That's one fight to break the choke, and then another you're going to have to take it overtime when the recontest comes in.
I'm going to need to see a combo here from DAF Konas. We need to set this Gravitic Flux needs eliminations. It's that simple.
You're swapping, Griffin? Swapping? You just threw the dragons from spawn? Okay, yeah, swapping. Onto the Ashe. I mean, again, it's like more pressure onto Paradox in theory with dynamites over the shield, but is that really enough? Here comes an Ant Matrix. That was a nice set of headshots, and Guardian doesn't stand a chance. Not against the damage Cyber Pilot pumps out. But that Immortality Field runs out pretty quick. It is a scrap. It is a bloodbath in that corner. Risky now finally able to get back and challenge Magmonix, who grapples away.
30 seconds.
But again, that's the one fight. Now we're going to need to see the overtime contest, and DAF threw everything they had at that.
We saw Transcendence used really late there from Nias as well. It doesn't keep Cyber Pilot in contention, so they don't get the stagger eliminations. That means that Army are right back into it here with 10 seconds remaining, and they only have a pulse bomb.
Transcendence for Army if things get dicey. Nice Immortality Field. That gives them a chance, but that chance dwindles as Risky hits the floor. Star Fox struggling to even hang on to this corner, and once again, Magmonix, it doesn't matter what the snipers look like, what characters Griffin is trying to pick. Magmonix is winning that fight 10 times out of 10, and a Transcendence carries Army to victory, a 2-1. They will likely go undefeated and end up as our first seed now. An excellent series, an excellent selection on Junkertown. Adaptations back and forth from both our squads, but at the end of the day, Army proved themselves the most flexible.
Big performance from the Army indeed. And I mean, a shout out to DAF Konas, no doubt about it, to be able to take Hollywood as they did. This was a back and forth game, and I mean that literally. It's what we saw in terms of scoreline. The stages that the teams were good at, they were great. And the teams that the stages they struggled, man, was it tough. And on this one, on Army's selection, they're able to close it out. A 3-0 scoreline on Junkertown. Incredible. But that will be Army staying flawless here as DAF Konas takes their first loss.
Yeah, frankly, insane stuff from Army today. I just don't know what you do against this team now, right? Like, in an extended series, like in any individual moment, maybe you can deal with them, as we saw DAF Konas do briefly on Nepal and then solidly on Hollywood. But the flexibility from Army seems nigh unbeatable. You know, they're one of those teams. It's not the kick they've practiced 1,000 times. It's 1,000 kicks they've practiced, right? So they have the perfect counter. They have the perfect read for any situation, any style you want to throw at them. They're going to be able to do something with it. Phenomenal stuff from Army. I can't wait to see more of them.
And now one thing I'm looking forward to is who is going to force Army onto something that they're struggling with, right? We got small glimpses of it with maybe the Winston a little bit, but even then, I mean, we're still able to make some progress with that composition. And when it failed, going back to Junker Queen, the Sigma was really strong from Paradox. And I mean, today, Paradox has been our most flexible player, bar none.
Yeah, and just a little update for off of stream, folks. DAF Konas, who we just saw in our match number 2, it was, managed to get themselves another win against Navy. Navy and the Coast Guard struggling maybe a little bit there. Maybe a little bit of a struggle bus, but good news for one of them. They're going to be our next match on stream. So one of them is going to pick up a win here. We're going to go back to back to a break here, folks. But when we come back, it's Coast Guard versus Navy.
One of the biggest things I've noticed is kind of connections you make with people and organizations or charity, whether it's friendly connections, whether it's business connections or career connections. That's one big takeaway that I've never really had that kind of experience.
My teammate Gooby was the one that was trying to find people, and so he grabbed me, asked me to play, because I actually got Gooby and Night into Overwatch a long time ago. So
since Overwatch 2's come out, I've probably fired it up twice before the beginning of March, and Gooby reached out to me. He's like, hey, I know you used to play this game a lot, you're pretty good at it. Why don't you play with me for a round and see if I want to pick you up for our team for the Coast Guard tournament. We really did well in the tournament in the Coast Guard, and we have a lot of synergy. It's been pretty fun.
A lot of our strategies preparing for this event are really about just finding what hero compositions we can make, what teams work best with the skill sets that we have. A lot of us have pretty narrow hero pools, so trying to find out if we can just play a brawl comp or play a poke comp or something like that, and just focus on those 1 or 2 comps that we're strongest at.
Just trying to see what my teammates need and how I can support the team translates to my everyday life too. Trying to see where I can help out, I guess, and where I can assist and try to get in there and help things move along.
It's actually been a really good experience. It's kind of crazy to have so many people from different units kind of come together, just be able to cooperate. It's kind of it shows the adaptability of certain branches, and obviously the Coast Guard to be able to work together as a team.
One of the most important things I've learned through the Coast Guard gaming as a team is communication and teamwork. It's not like most first-person shooters where you're just playing solo queuing. We are a team of 5 people. One person can throw it off versus talking and understanding that we have limitations based off who we have and don't have.
Kind of surreal when you know someone for 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, and then finally get to meet that person. After you talk to them every single day, it just seems like you know them so well.
I think it's very important, especially being in the military. You're always moving every 4 years. Kind of hard to keep a consistent friend group, but through Coast Guard Gaming, you get a sense of friendships that can be maintained worldwide when there's distance between you guys.
Playing a team game has taught me quite a bit. It definitely reinforced a lot of the stuff I've learned throughout my career in the Navy. Communication, leadership, teamwork. Everybody has a role to play.
Keep our tank alive. That's my #1 goal. And then from there, it's play our best game. Don't worry about what they're doing.
I like representing the Navy. I like to be able to represent it in a very unique way.
We all want to have that either competitiveness or that camaraderie with our friends.
Being able to meet them in person is actually a pretty cool experience. Even though I kind of knew who they were, it is kind of like meeting someone for the first time.
Some people might not say it's the biggest strength. We came with a limited pool of, hey, these is our comps and these are our players. We've been playing together, we have our communications down, so we have the ability to be flexible within that pool.
Sometimes it comes out of me. These teams have been playing a little bit together, but it's not as well as the Goats and Glory team. The Navy actually games. Don't get mad. There's no point.
I'm looking forward to see where I stack up against some other people. I definitely don't know who they all are.
Doesn't matter how well your dealers do. I peeked your hat out.
We're just over halfway done with our first day here at the Department of the Air Force Esports Invitational. Here, I said it right that time, LaFawn. I didn't say whatever I was saying before. We're joining you folks from our homes, but all the players are in San Antonio, Texas at the Boeing Center Tech Land. Beautiful little place, if I do say so myself. I don't even get to go, but I can tell from the little shots we get of the players that they're having a fantastic time, all getting to go together on land. I mean, you just heard from our upcoming 2 teams, actually, the Coast Guard team and the Navy team, that they're very excited to get that teamwork that they've been working on online to really synergize and hit home together in person.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen these 2 teams play on stream already here, right? So a chance now for them to go to match up against each other. And of course, at our standings overall, Coast Guard and the Navy down at the bottom there, 0-2 and 0-3 respectively, but an opportunity for one of them to take their first victory here.
Yeah, they're both hunting for the win. Reminder for anyone who's maybe just joined us in the last hour, 30 minutes or so, right? This is a round robin stage to start us off. Our top 4 teams get seeded into a championship bracket. That 5th place team, unfortunately, will not have a chance to win tomorrow, but they'll still get to show up and play in the consolation bracket and could theoretically get as high as 3rd place. It'd be one amazing turnaround to go from 5th to 3rd in 1 day's time, but it's not technically impossible. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first roster, the Navy.
In a sense, of course, we had them on earlier today, but looking forward to making that comeback here as they kind of sit at the bottom of the table. I mean, a lot to like from some of the moments we saw from them as we take a look at the team in front of us as well.
I'm very excited to see Goats in Glory live up to their name. They got goats, right? They just need the glory part. They need that glory of a first win here as we go into the series. This is undoubtedly the most winnable match for them, though. The Coast Guard, yes, have been struggling a little bit today, but we have seen flashes of brilliance out of this team as well, right? We saw guys like Gooby and Scotty Nose earlier popping off at times.
And yeah, I think this is going to be based around kind of that front line, as we saw. I mean, Scotty knows having the flexibility there, a little bit of a support DPS kind of hybrid. So clearly a flexibility, a marker. You know, we heard from them that they don't think their hero pools necessarily have the massive, flexibility as perhaps like a team like the Army, but inside their niche, an opportunity to really showcase some strength. So as they step in here onto the server, I'm curious to see how that kind of plays in on our first map. Control, as always, lends itself to chaos a little bit, and that means that in the chaos, can you find the calm? Can you really showcase a place where, as things are going wrong, getting that early pickoff, or staying alive, keeping your tank up just a little bit longer? That and more is kind of what I'm looking for here.
Our first map will be Oasis. Again, it's 1st to 2 here, folks. So you drop map number 1, things get very tricky to try and pick that series up. I mean, we even saw in our most recent series, despite how close that game ultimately was, the fact that the Army was able to pick that 3rd map and go to a place where they were extremely comfortable, and Conus was ultimately not nearly as prepared for. Despite how close that game was, it didn't look that close on Junkertown. So a win on map number 1 in series, in any series, obviously, but especially in series as short as a 1st to 2, can't oversell how valuable it is.
Having map selection in your tiebreaker game is it's just unbelievable, right? Unbelievable strength. So yeah, looking forward to who comes out on top here, especially on a neutral map. Reminder, map number 1 is pre-selected.
Yeah.
So it is a neutral map in the sense that neither team elected to go here.
Guido's learning a lesson or two from the series we saw them take an L in earlier. Oh, guys, I think Junker Queen might be pretty good. Maybe we should be running the Junker Queen ourselves. So there that is from the Coast Guard. Navy,
some roll swaps on Navy side.
Not quite feeling it. Yeah, roll swaps too. You're right. Shadow Fathom hitting up the support line with DCat now instead on the DPS on that Reaper to try and match Scotty Nose, who just narrowly gets out of there. Oh, and circles around. DCat didn't know what hit him.
That's gonna put put the Navy on the back foot here. Still trying to take space though.
I mean, not giving up quite yet. Hard to contest though, and Coast Guard will get that first point even with Gooby going down, the Dynamite did all the necessary work. Shadow Fathom falls. That's the majority of the healing for the Navy. Still quite a bit of damage, though. They're still trying to hang around onto this objective. Emiwee limping away. Oh, I thought she was going to get out of that, but not quite.
Yeah, no, I mean, Gooby now. Oh, okay. A little bit of spice there.
Ooh.
Get a quick dance.
Dang, win one fight, emote on him.
You know what? I respect it. I respect. It's better to do it early and kind of keep it going than do it at the end of the game where everything's already been said and done.
Yeah, I mean, if you're hitting those shots, right? I mean, just absolutely annihilated Bull trying to re-enter there. And this Zarya can be really hard to get value out of. I mean, look at the discipline from Coast Guard. They just don't even bother with the bubble when Emiwee puts it up. Now the commanding shout to total control of the choke here for the Coast Guard. Gooby going on too ambitious of a flank. It wasn't prepared for Bull to fight for that one and protect the other support. Valkyrie out now to try and keep Coast Guard in it. If he gets the res, oh, you can't let that happen, Navy. That was behind you. And Gooby gets away after throwing the bomb in the mix to spice things up. Even the 1v1 almost won against Emiwee. Guidazan finishes that up, and Bob gets into the action as well. 70% already for the Coast Guard.
Yeah, that's now last fight territory, too. Navy still have an opportunity, right? Nano, Nano, Death Blossom, Grav are 3 big ultimates to have online. But, I mean, speaking of Death Blossom, Scotty knows sitting in a corner, biding his time. I think DCat spotted him.
Here. No, I don't think he did. I don't think DCat knows. No, they have no idea. There's an Death Blossom, at least 2, exactly 2, just as I predicted. Okay, picks up 3rd off Tito, but who could ever follow up on the Grav now? Absolutely no one. You lob it in, you have to. It's last fight on the map. And the whip shot from Baby denies DCat any sort of mirror. No Death Blossom, no chance. The Coast Guard looking thrilled at that stage win.
That's a really nice start here for the Coast Guard. Their first round here on Oasis. A pretty stellar one. I mean, literally perfect score-wise, 100-0. And I think the impressive thing from the Coast Guard there is they don't really allow the Navy to get past the choke point, right? Get into a place where they can get the Reaper, to get bubbled up and really start putting damage down. So playing to their strengths and denying the Navy theirs.
3, 2. Beautiful first round. Second one, not going to get much easier for the Navy as we go over into Gardens. A little bit of an adaptation. I like Shadow Fathom on the Kiriko. I think that is a solid answer to the Junker Queen. Tito on the Soldier is a little bit tricky, especially against Gooby. Oh, nice little rocket jump, though. That was some solid tech from Tito. Get up into the window, deny Gooby the high angle. Gooby instead taking the low ground. Beautiful headshot onto Emiwee, though, who gets caught. Hand in the cookie jar. Oh, and here we go. Tito, now you're pretty stuck, bud. The legs is fast, but you can't outrun a bullet.
Team kill there indeed. I mean, Gooby, I think rightly has earned this pocket now from Night Night, right? One of the critical things for a Mercy pick is if the DPS is not getting value out of your damage boost, you end up being a bit of a liability, but Gooby has certainly proven himself here.
Scotty nose down early. A little bit of
Dynamite
start here
worse
for
than the
Coast
Suzu.
Guard. Dynamite dealing quite a bit of damage. Ooh, keeps Navy on their toes for a bit. Early Wraith form there, and DCat just trying to walk into the back line. A total distraction. Guidazan gets a bit of tunnel vision there. Tries to follow the enemy Reaper, but meanwhile, the rest of the Coast Guard's wiped off the map.
I mean, the Coast Guard, if maybe they'd gotten the Rampage up maybe like 10 seconds earlier, this would have been an opportunity for them to kind of turn around. Instead, they don't have anything to reply from Navy, kind of just walking at them, right? It's like, all right, what are you going to do to slow us down? The answer's not much, and in the open air, the Navy was able to isolate the Coast Guard members and take them out one by one.
Rampage in tow now for Guidazan. Just got to try and force that Suzu out of Shadow Fathom before you go for anything too spicy. The bubbles, too, actually pretty solid to clean that up. Get rid of those antis. Coalescence early from Bull. Coast Guard, I think, honestly, you can kind of just peel this back. Oh, Shadow Fathom. Barely able to survive that one. Wraith form out. A lot of defensive cooldowns used. Navy, they try to get aggressive. They might regret it. Gooby does fall, so 4v5 and counter Death Blossoms. Shut down is Scotty Knows. Night Night back resing Gooby, too. Leaves Guidazan vulnerable, and Navy holds strong.
I know is going to make a change over there. Actually, it's a really good Kitsune rush by Shadow Fathom, right? It's the Death Blossom. It's one of its biggest weaknesses is how slow it is and how difficult to get into line of fire, close range that you kind of need to operate under. The Kitsune rush removes that, right? Increases your movement speed. You get real close, and obviously the Coast Guard have no way to respond, which is a little unfortunate because this Rampage that was built so early has now been one of the later ultimates used, and you kind of need it quickly here.
Rally in tow as well. Gotta go faster for Coast Guard. I mean, it's already 80%.
Oh, no.
Rampage gets stuck in the grab! Guidozan doesn't get anything! And Tito's just free firing from the high ground now. The IMAX shield can't keep baby up. Not a chance. And for the second time today, for the second match in a row, we're going to go to 3 rounds of control.
What a turnaround, too, right? That's also a very I mean, one-sided round there from the Navy. 100-0 in the first one. They turn it 33-100 in the second. That's fantastic from them. And to deny ultimates as big as the Rampage and Bob back-to-back without having Suzu, right? There's the Suzu used there.
Oh, the timing there is so tough. Unfortunate for Guidozan. The angle was good, too. That would have been a nasty Rampage had it not been for a well-placed grab.
I mean, literally no bubbles. The Wraith Walk was used. Suzu was used.
Yeah, would have caught 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Round 3.
Well, we had
and now Coast Guard, they're gonna pivot entirely. Dunker Queen, they aren't happy with how that performed in round number 2. So over onto the Reinhardt to switch up the style a bit.
I mean, against Zarya, it makes sense.
Reinhardt without a Lucio is always a little bit of a struggle, though. It's just hard for you to catch up and really get value out of the hammer. Unless DCat's just going to come right to you and you hit your fire strikes. Okay, that works. Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's going to slow things down, too. Tito is looking for a player that just isn't coming.
It's like, oh, no, I got to get out of here. Turns around, jumps into 3 players. Whoops.
Oh, tragic. That's gonna be a reset now for the Navy as not really finding a target.
It's hard to run the Zarya into the Reinhardt. These two back in Overwatch 1 days were the thick as thieves, but now the Reinhardt very solidly takes this 1v1. Oh no!
Yeah.
DCat getting annihilated. That had to have been set up by a headshot from Gooby. Look at the angle. Yeah, undoubtable.
I mean, definitely assisted by the Mercy. So you know that, damage boost coming in onto Gooby for sure. I mean, so hard. Without mobility, right? This Ashe is literally uncontested. Who is coming and facing Gooby down?
Unkillable, right? I mean, look at this long rotation Navy have to do to try and get to Gooby on the high ground. Still picks one out of the air on the way down. Tito gone, DCat to Bull low. 50% taken already for the Coast Guard, and they're coming up to ults now, too. The Pulse Bomb lobbed in doesn't get much, but still a Bob and a Shatter nearly sitting in the back pocket. Shadow Fathom already to low. Bob just gonna squish Emoiwi into the corner. A sandwich made out of the Zarya there. DCat not even allowed to get on top. Bob tears through everyone. And it's only one ult to win the fight.
I mean, that's also a fight that took like a good solid like 20-30% of the map, right? So we're in last fight territory, and Navy are not going to be able to recollect fully with that elimination onto Tito until you're looking at like a 90% contest, maybe. What do you really have available to you?
You don't have Moira.
You don't have
your support.
Shatter now.
Yeah, I mean, you just wait for a bubble and you shatter. Or you don't even wait for the bubble, you try to go for it. That means you don't really get much out of it. But DCat, not on the same page as the rest of the Navy, who are very wary of that shatter. Goes on in, dies, and Navy's done and dusted. Coast Guard with their first map win of the day.
It's terrible. A more competitive game, though, right? The Navy isn't out of it yet. They did take that round. They now get their map selection heading into map number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest issue for the Navy, though, is that their strengths are also the Coast Guard's strengths, right? Both teams playing in the same style of composition. They both seem to want to operate in that brawl a lot of the time. And for the Navy, you kind of lose in that brawl head-to-head. You kind of have to stick with what you're good at, though, right? Because it's not like you're going to suddenly go to a dive composition in map number 2 and it's just a tough place to be.
I'd like to see Emowiwi pivot back to the Reinhardt. We saw that from the Navy in our very first map of the day. Of course, it was against Paradox's Junker Queen. I think that was going to be a hard matchup. But if the Navy can just force the Rush v Rush mirror, can force Rhine versus Rhine, I think that's going to work out plenty fine. Now, if the Coast Guard get an opportunity to pivot back over to the Junker Queen that they showed a little bit on this map, then maybe that becomes more difficult. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not convinced yet that the Coast Guard are comfortable running that. So pivoting back over to the Reinhardt, keeping things in that Rush vein, and giving Emowiwi a better chance in the tank head-to-head, I think just makes sense.
Yeah, it also keeps your front line close to your DPS, right? That's the other thing that's kind of a bit of an issue. A couple of these fights, Emowiwi has been forward, trying to get into the fight, and Scott, you got your DPS on flanks that aren't really finding value. The supports are isolated as well, so they get picked off from range. I think being able to keep everyone a little bit more on the same page makes this a little bit easier for the Navy. And as we head to Hollywood, I don't hate the selection, right? You're forced by map geometry to kind of operate within those confines that I alluded to moments ago. And I think that gives you a better chance of at least putting more pressure onto the front line of the Coast Guard.
And now as we go on to Hollywood for our second map here, this feels like a pretty interesting selection, honestly, from the Navy. They're going to be attacking first. Doesn't really seem like they're going to change much. I expected a bit of a pivot coming onto Hollywood.
Ooh, Coast Guard really want to make this Life Weaver. They really want to make the Life Weaver work.
I had some cheeky stuff with it earlier, but it did get rightfully squashed when we saw it on stream versus Oconus.
I mean, we do get to see that spray again, which is kind of nice, but
where is it?
It's on the it's beside the car.
Ah, I missed it.
Beside the payload, not you know.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Because
there are a lot of cars.
There are a lot of cars in Hollywood. Yeah.
The car. I figured you meant the important one.
Yeah. I forgot that this sports car looking thing is here. How many times have I played this map?
Well, to be fair, how often do you look at that part of the map?
Yeah, that's true.
And really concern yourself with it, you know? Sim turret setup here. Gooby, I mean, they're more of an annoyance than anything else. Actually, it gives Emowiwi quite a bit of charge to start this off, right? You just pop the bubble, walk through the choke, take a bunch of damage from those. Already up to 90% charge. Gooby, gotta be careful contesting that one.
All right, who's gonna be the first one gripped by the Life Weaver?
I want to see a yoink. Give me a little yoinky. Oh, up on the flower goes Guidozam, trying to contest the high ground again. Interesting, but not very potent. Oh, it's a ton of damage. DCat's lucky to get out with his life. Gooby trying to chase him down. At least spots one and manages to finish off Tito and get a nice little heal from Night there. I mean, that does open the door here for Coast Guard to try and get aggressive. Got to be a little bit careful. That's a good yoink. Well done by Baby to keep Guidozam alive. Unfortunately, only one little pull was available, so Gooby getting the wrong end of DCat, but it's worthwhile for the Coast Guard.
Yeah, especially because you get the Resurrect too, right? So essentially you trade a life for a cooldown. That's easily a worthwhile one. The Coast Guard, I think the biggest thing is that they're kiting damage away, right? Emowiwi, who's like when the Zarya's at 100 energy, they're really threatening. But if the Zarya's not in close quarters, then it doesn't matter how much energy they have, because it's not dealing any damage. So I really like how Coast Guard are kind of playing super passively in light of that information.
Photon Barrier 2 is just going to stall the Navy out even longer. They've already elapsed almost half their time bank. They wait out the Photon Barrier. I think that's the right call. It'd be harder to fight into it, but it's not going to be much easier to try and make this work. DCat already so low. The sole person trying to contest the high ground. Nobody else from Navy is able to get up there reliably. So now with that gone, Emowiwi is kind of just left out in the open, left out to dry. Ooh, a Nano to save her. Can she make it worthwhile? Annihilation the other direction. A grab thrown in pretty much desperation, but it's so hard to chew through Guidozam. Shadow Fathom and Emowiwi hitting the floor promptly. So much invested there by the Navy. 3 ults, and they don't get much out of it.
Yeah, it's just the Annihilation and the Tree of Life from Baby that really get invested there. And I mean, realistically, you know, trading that it's more than favorable for the Coast Guard. Minute 20 left. I mean, time is just not on the Navy's side here.
You know, it's crazy, LaFon. We've casted so little Life Weaver. I legitimately did not remember what his ult was called. Not even in the slightest. And it's just called Tree of Life, which is so simple. All right, over onto the Reinhardt. I think this is a nice adaptation. It's hard into the Ramattra, but I think it gives Emowiwi a little bit more agency than the Zarya. That being said, this burn damage is brutal. And Greedazom doesn't let up. It is a 1-for-1, not unwinnable here for Navy. And they kind of have to try and fight it, honestly. 45 seconds remaining. Tac fries are out. That's a pick you absolutely need to get. And DCAT will team up. Was that the Death Blossom on the high ground to finish that off? Sure, it works. Why not? Make it happen. Gooby and Scotty knows. Still sticking around here. This high ground cannot be ripped away from Scotty. Emowiwi coming back, but the Simtorch slow her down. And Gooby's going to tear away at her shield, too. Leader's on back and deals with that. Only 20 seconds remaining now.
I mean, you don't have anything in the last fight, right? This Shatter is not going to be here in time. Neither is the Nano Boost. And I mean, you're dealing with an Annihilation. Another Photon Barrier on the way from Gooby at that. I mean, you're praying for a miracle here at the Year of the Navy.
And it's no miracles. Not this time. Miracle is very much not in sight. Annihilation living up to its name. Tito at least wins the DPS 1v1, but will not be around for very long. Not even a tick taken. Coast Guard, it feels like they're on the precipice of their first series win. They're happy about it, too.
They're happy about it, for sure. I mean, the Coast Guard, yeah, this is a performance that they needed to kind of have, right? It's a selection that... I mean, if I remember correctly, the Coast Guard picked Hollywood in their first match, did they not?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a map that you kind of get, you opt into in your own terms, and then it gets gifted to you as well for the second time in a row. So, I mean, I think pleased with the performance here from the Coast Guard. It's quite nice. You put yourself in a position to succeed and get a little bit lucky as well, and you know, you find yourself in a winning position.
Coast Guard showing resiliency in the Battle of the Boats. Yeah, I know it's a dumb name, LaFon. I know. Wow, you're really leaving me on red here.
You know, sometimes I was really hunting for something there.
There's nothing. Don't bother. We can blow past it.
I do like this kind of mirror, actually. The Ramattra versus duel.
I think this is going to be a little bit difficult, though. We haven't really seen much Ramattra from Emowiwi. I'm concerned she's not going to be nearly as comfortable on it as Greedazom, who has opted into it very consistently.
I mean, aggressive Nemesis is like the big thing here. You don't want to do that. The second Nemesis often is the better one. I will also say, though, that Emowiwi has the better backline, right? Anti-nade, Sleep Dart, those are just such useful tools to have in the tank head-to-head. And then, I mean, the nano combo for the Annihilation is so wonderful.
Are they going over top again? Are they going? All right, Scotty, you got to make it this time. You can't get stuck on the lip.
No!
Ah, wait. He got stuck again! No, back to the walk of shame through main. It still works out. Gooby, I don't know how he hit that shot. Was that over the top? Actually, most of the Coast Guard didn't even make it on that Life Weaver rotation that time. I think it was literally only Greedazom.
We give them style points for the first attempt, but now we have to like start grading their execution.
Doing it is fun and you get style points. But if you're gonna do it over and over again, like it needs to get better each time, not worse. Pretty desperate contest here from the Navy, but it's all in vain. Nothing can stop the Coast Guard from going up 2-0 and taking their first series at the DAF Esports Invitational.
Well done to the Coast Guard here as they'll make that quick work. They also get a Life Weaver win on the board. So that's super exciting as well.
That might be the first Life Weaver win, or like the first or second Life Weaver win in all of streamed Overwatch. Come on, guys.
So many defensive cooldowns used.
They used so much, and all of them failed. The Fade didn't get Night over. The Wraith Form didn't get Scotty over. It's so funny. Baby even didn't even get over with a Life Weaver dash. That's so funny.
All right, So
ultimately a great series from them, though, showing again such resiliency after those couple of losses that they took earlier today. They're now guaranteed. Actually, I think they're just straight up guaranteed. The 4th seed. Unless they somehow get a win against the Army. Good luck, guys. But 4th seed means that they get a much more favorable position going into tomorrow's day of matches.
Yeah. And I mean, this now leaves the Navy still looking for their first win. I think, unfortunately for them, the likelihood of them stepping into that 4th place is pretty limited.
It's impossible. They don't have any more games, LaFon.
Yeah, so they'll have to contend with that consolation bracket tomorrow.
They will be our 5th seed, but we will get to see more of them as well. So they're not quite done just yet.
Still impressive stuff nonetheless. I mean, a round of applause to the Coast Guard, right? Getting that victory there. The Navy had some pretty decent fights overall. It's not like they were entirely uncontested on their way to this victory. And now the question then becomes, how does the rest of our bracket kind of wrap up? There is still a couple of games left to play, and definitely looking forward to what our final standings are.
Yeah, I mean, not to rain on the Coast Guard's parade after their first win. Army versus Coast Guard does feel like a surefire thing, but we're not gonna be tuning into that match. Instead, we're gonna be getting Air Force v Air Force. We got CONUS versus OCONUS for our last game of day number 1 here at the DAF Esports Invitational. That's coming up to you after a quick break.
Inter-branch like camaraderie, like getting to know other branches and other people from other branches and see what they do on a day-to-day basis and how that varies completely from what I do from day-to-day, let alone Army or Air Force, how we have very, very different jobs, very different backgrounds, but we're on the same military service, and it's crazy to see how much that can vary. kind of give you an appreciation for what they do and for what you do. And
I think it's amazing for the gaming community in the Coast Guard. Usually you get stuck in this like clique of your rate or MOS, but now I'm playing with people I never would have met. Meeting these people, it kind of brings this community of gamers together. It's really nice.
My favorite heroes to play are probably Widowmaker and Ashe. Pretty much across all first-person shooters, I tend to play a long-range sniper or something that fits that role. Play a little bit more like defensively. Overwatch was one of my first PC shooters, so I figured jumping onto those characters first would help like force me to ramp up and learn how to aim on PC as opposed to playing with a controller.
I respect everyone on the team. It takes a lot to be able to do your job and then set aside the amount of time to practice out of your free time.
I've always been a competitive player. Like, I have a problem playing things non-competitively. I just have that competitive spirit where I want to win. But I really enjoy the people, and that's the main reason why I stay, because I can always join a different organization, but the people are just out of this world. I love playing with them.
So I've been playing with a lot of these guys for about 2 or 3 years now. Having them sit right next to you is like a really cool feeling to like, it sort of like builds that teamwork like while you're sitting next to them.
It's gotten me more involved in the community, whether scrims or even just pugs, and we just play with a bunch of people and just have a good time.
This is the first time meeting the boys, but it's kind of weird because like it doesn't really feel like it because we've just been riffing for so long.
I've played with a few teams in the past. We try and practice as much as we could, but we can never really build synergy. With everyone on the team here, I have better synergy with them than I have with other teams.
I've tried very hard to split myself from my rank when it comes to this team because I don't want them to see me as an officer. I want everyone's voice on the team to be heard, really, and that comes through in the comms, and it helps us synergize better as a team to have that rank agnostic type playing field for the team.
I've never been to another LAN event. This will be my first LAN event for even witnessing a game. And I'm ecstatic to see like who was all like, I've heard of people like wouldn't be coming and watching us. I just think the whole situation is just really cool, and I'm really proud to just be able to be here.
So this is my first in-person event that I'm competing in. This has always been talked about, the opportunity to be here to compete in front of an audience, to compete against the other branches.
I think the number one that our whole team is looking out for is the Army.
I'm really looking forward to playing the Army. I've been a part of the Army like Esports Discord, and I've seen what they're doing. I know they're putting in a lot of work, so I think it's going to be a really good challenge for us.
They're competent, they're good. We play at the same level. We go back and forth wins and losses, so this time is the time to win.
The fact that it's happening is incredible, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
You know, I never envisioned us actually coming here and like doing this thing in person and like meeting all these people. It's something I would always like pitch, right? And to actually see it like happen is something else entirely. So it's been really a privilege and really fun to be a part of.
Just the camaraderie. It is a team-based game, and when you're winning, and you're on such a high, and I love that about it.
I never met any of these guys when I first started playing. The communication from then to now and the camaraderie, it's just like so much different from just being within my own work section or with my own group of friends and stuff like that.
Ever since I joined the league, I would definitely say that the league has taught me a lot of things. I have teammates that I've never played before. How do I interact with them? How do I get the best out of them? How do they get the best out of me? Guys, I know this is your strengths. Here's my strengths. Here's your weaknesses. Here's our weaknesses.
When you're losing, you still have to stay positive, but it's okay because if you have good teammates, they'll keep the spirits high, and that's what's important to us.
Overall, the team looks pretty good, I would say. We picked up pretty well, and picked up how fast we can communicate and work well within a matter of 2 days. That some teams take maybe a year or two to do.
Yeah, normally you just play with people and you just see their name, you don't see any face, so it's really cool to be able to meet my teammates and get to know them really well.
I think we're really good at a brawl style comp. The more we keep it simple, the better it goes, the better we can execute. And I think that's what we really excel at, is keeping it simple, going for the pushes, and working together.
If there was like one character I used to play a lot, was Doom. So Doom now is pretty fun for me, and sometimes Ramatra.
Ashe, she for sure is my favorite of the heroes.
Do something.
Oh, number one, Kiriko. Funnest character in the game. Sneaking up, getting a pick, throwing 2 kunais, disappearing on them.
So a big part for me as DPS is I will be watching the flanks. I've been guarding. When we all dive on one character, I'm supposed to be the damage dealer, right? So I gotta be there to put that damage into whatever that character so we can get the pick.
I like to see avenues to try to win the game or try to get a pick, help my teammates out, and just try overall win the game.
I think our biggest challenge will be the Konas team. We've been playing them pretty close. Yeah, hopefully we'll make it a close game against them in the finals.
I'm not concerned about too much. It's just a matter of learning what they have first and just adapting to it, you know? It might seem a bit rough in the beginning, but as soon as we can make those changes, it might make it or break it.
Technically, I have 2 dream jobs. Would have been being in the military. I had that idea since I was 5, and when I started getting into gaming, be a professional gamer at some point. Technically, I have both, and it's incredible that the Air Force kind of gave me this chance to do something like it.
We're back with one more match here for the first day of the DAF Esports Invitational. And what better way to round out day number one than with a DAF head-to-head match? We've got Continental United States Department of the Air Force versus outside the Continental United States Department of the Air Force. Oconus versus Conus. We're going to try and keep that as clear as possible as we go into our match. Quite a few stakes for this final match of the day too, LaFawn, as these teams are currently tied.
Yeah, and I mean, this actually basically cements the standing of second and third, right? The rest of the bracket are basically fully decided. Coast Guard and Army are happening right now, actually, as we speak, off stream. So that one, I mean, the expected scoreline is Army to win that one out. And with that being assumed, yeah, exactly, 2 and 3 up for grabs still.
Yeah, I mean, unless Coast Guard pull off an insane upset, a frankly unprecedented upset. This is going to be what determines our 2 seed and our 3 seed in that particular order. Let's go ahead and take one more look at these teams. It's been a minute since we saw either one. This is Conus. This is our Continental United States. These are the guys that really pushed Army to the brink. The only team to take a map off of Army today thus far. Actually, the only team to have been in a 3-map series and lose, I guess, as Army was also in that series. But very impressive stuff that we saw from them earlier today.
And that makes them kind of the favorite stepping into this one, right? Because they were in that position against our best team statistically. They are the one we have a lot of expectations for. And I think it took a bit for them to warm up on round number 1 on Nepal in their first game, but they were able to bring it back on round 2 for 100-0 in the flip direction, right?
Yeah.
They didn't quite close it out, obviously, in map number 1, but when they went to their map selection, looked very strong there again. And I think what that says about this DAF Conus team is that when they're at their strengths, they really, really shine. It's can they shore up some of the issues when they're perhaps off kilter a little bit? That's what we're really wondering from this squad now.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking a look at their competition, DAF Oconus, also very commendable in their own right. They've had a pretty baller day. They comfortably put away their games against the Navy and the Coast Guard. They did struggle a little bit more, technically speaking, against Army, but it was still, from what we could tell, a relatively competitive match, even though it was a 2-0. So I'm excited to see what this team has in store for us today in this next match. This is, of course, is the team being, actually, these are both the teams being coached to the back room by those ex-Overwatch League coaches, or at least that's what we were seeing earlier, right? So interested to see how that head-to-head goes.
And, again, the selection for these teams were those coaches, right? Having seen some of the players coming in from, from those teams playing prior in the DAF games earlier, they selected a squad and built them out here. And so, yeah, there we can see the coaches in the back.
Yeah, you can see Arrow step in. And
for the first time,
Kai was over on the other side.
Yeah, for the first time, I believe we actually get an Overwatch 2 map on display here as we start off on Antarctic Peninsula for our control game.
Yeah, Antarctic Peninsula. This is you were always telling me, LaFawn, recently as you and I have been covering this map, you've been telling me it's quickly becoming one of your favorites to watch.
Yeah, and I should highlight in the competitive sphere, right? I obviously have 2 tier lists. Sure. One for the competitive sphere where I commentate and watch as a fan, and then one is for me as a player, right? Where I enjoy playing most. Antarctic Peninsula falls very firmly in the first group at the top of the list because of how much strategic depth there is on the multiple stages on this map, right? One solution does not fit all 3 points, even more so than the other control maps. I mean, there are outliers, like think of Lijiang Tower Control Center, plays so very differently from the other 2. But I think you can make an argument for Antarctic Peninsula that all 3 points play so wildly differently that you can make 3 different styles work and look good on all 3.
Absolutely. A very interesting map too. I especially the one that we're looking at right now with this high ground bisecting the point. This one can be very tricky to play, even for like top level teams trying to get control of that high ground, while also generally speaking playing the rush, even on the patch that we see Overwatch League and contenders and such play on. Much less when we get onto the current patch, where I think it's pretty likely that we see both these teams roll out on a rush, probably a Junker Queen rush.
And I mean, one thing to attend to with that is that obviously with new maps, right, they man, we've been playing Overwatch for so long, both Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2, that there's this concept of kind of a solved state of the game. And I don't mean solved in the sense that you know exactly what to pick all the time, but we know what approaches to take, right? This is, with these sight lines, maybe focus a little bit better. You know, maybe with these these close quarters, choke points, maybe want to run rush a little bit more. You know, there's a lot of high ground. Dive is probably selectable. On Antarctic Peninsula, because it's different enough, even though we have as a whole understood how to play Overwatch consistently, I think there's enough new things in this map that it changes that approach just a little bit, and gives a little bit of a breath of fresh air, right? So that has been one of the other reasons why this map has been so exciting. To kind of build on that, right, as we move forward for these two teams, they've been given at least DAF Conus, right? When we saw them against the Army, they showed flexibility, right? They showed a level of being able to move from comp to comp. Now it's going to be up to Conus to be able to match that level of prowess across the multitude.
I mean, you know, and when we did see Conus earlier, they did technically display quite a bit of flexibility. Admittedly, it was, you know, it was in a somewhat one-sided series, and some of that flexibility was a little bit silly, but still they did at least display an inkling of that. Whether or not that can remain consistent against a team of a much higher caliber will definitely remain to be seen.
Alrighty, just waiting to get into the action here for our
Don't
first
gotta wait long.
round. Yep, interesting stuff.
So far, pretty reasonable, pretty expected stuff hovered from either side.
I think. So the interesting thing is this is the indoor map. This is sub level of the stage. This is the map we often see a lot of mobility comps played, right? Because you can see that middle high ground that's kind of there. Having a Winston be able to jump up to high ground is super useful. But it's not incorrect to run the rush. It just means that contesting the point is going to be a lot more difficult, and it's going to rely on your DPS doing that more frequently.
Especially with Junker Queen in the mix, right? Diving a Junker Queen is just such a pain to try and pull off. Especially, you know, we did see Blackhawk more so favoring this Ramattra earlier as well. So a sensible start, I have to believe. An interesting rotation here from Conus to begin. They tried to begin down on the low ground, but end up getting a late rotation up to meet Conus up top. Man, that is going to trip me up all this match, I guarantee it. Blackhawk not quite getting the land with the Nemesis form that he was hoping for, and Ranger is quickly dismissed. Yeah, there's not nearly as much sustain. I mean, I think the problem you're going to have up in this match for Blackhawk, right, is if you don't get a significant amount of picks, not even just damage, but picks out of the Nemesis form, the healing from Dark Fox is going to so quickly recover that once you're back in the regular form for Ramattra, you're not going to be able to do anything.
I will also highlight the fact that DAF Conus wants to play front to back, right? Meaning that they want everyone on their opposition to be in their line of sight moving towards them. DAF Conus is not in any such restriction. They're going to play from all around, and that limits a lot of what the Ramattra is able to do. The Ramattra is not really good unless the pummel is hitting multiple targets.
Oh, the hack on Heroes. Oh, he's so low. Good peel, but not quite good enough. A little bit of miscommunication there from Heroes and Bing. Bing investing the immortality field, and it doesn't even keep his support buddy alive. At least don't trade it back. He says, all right, if I can't keep you alive, at least I can kill the counterpart. Risky and Griffin doing a good job of teaming up on Xerxes too. And I mean, Dark Fox can take this fight all day long, and it gets him a rampage too, nice and early. Bing running away as the immortality field comes back off cooldown. That helps survive for a moment, but honestly, it's just a later stagger.
And if anything, you're looking at that pulse bomb as being somewhat an overinvestment from DAF Conus. And I mean, I'm nitpicking obviously when I say that, right? It's such a quick cooldown to reset. But
they got both support ult and EMP coming up.
Yeah, I mean, for DAF Conus, that's kind of the situation we find ourselves in, right? They're playing such a clean style. Oh my goodness, an ambush? Are they going for a really aggressive EMP? I think they are.
I'd kind of love that, honestly. It doesn't seem like Conus are any wiser to it.
Oh, well.
EMP is not quite up and ready yet. Now an Ant Matrix to try and punish this early push. Sound barrier to answer. This is getting pretty scrappy up in this close room. Oh, pinned down though. Blackhawk using the slow from Ranger to try and get into the backline. Ranger trades his life for it, and it's still scrappy from there. Not quite worth it. I like the idea, but the timing doesn't work out to where it works. 99% now, and Dark Fox with a third rampage. 3 rampages in 3 fights. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's one of the things about generating. That's one of the things about ultimates in Overwatch, right? You generate them via damage, but also via healing. And when your healing gets increased, well, you're building your rampage that much more swiftly.
Might have been 2 in 3 fights. Either way, insane.
A lot. Yeah.
2 of any ult in 3. That's more pulse bombs than we saw.
That's true. I would also like to highlight that EMP is such a powerful tool against everything DAF Oconus is running. I mean, we talk about, silencing and the damage it deals and the damage amplification it gives you. There's also a small problem where if you use Blizzard, Ant Matrix, Sound Barrier, all of those get destroyed by the EMP.
True. Yeah, it's not ideal.
Round 2, capture the
Oconus here deciding.
Wait, the Oconus team has played the NA comp.
Yeah, they're playing the Trick Room comp here. I don't know if I like that one. I think this is a little bit of a misread. Xerxes on the Torb, really only going to even slightly annoy Griffin. And look at how free Dark Fox lives inside their lines. Even a Bastion's not enough damage to deal with him, and Griffin translocating out, surviving the turret form. Okay, finally we're getting some work put in here. Griffin assassinating heroes in the backline, but falls promptly afterwards, and Oconus will take the first fight on this map.
It's a good start, but it was a little bit labored in its approach. Now the question is, there's nothing wrong necessarily with barely winning fights if you can string multiple of them together. Again, though, that is a big deal. Keep in mind, a lot of DAF Oconus's power comes from the cooldown rotation of Ranger's steam, right? Having the configuration, assault configuration step up is where you find your most value. If that gets baited out early, you're in for a big problem. So keep an eye on that for sure.
Risky trying to get in on that flank for the turret. Denying the angle entirely. Nice damage bumped in. Being in a little bit of trouble. Immortality Field keeps him up, though, and no one's even shooting it, so he just lives free. Oconus fold like wet paper on the point.
I feel like Oconus is not quite sure who they really want to focus in this composition. And the truth is, the way you approach a Bastion comp is you kind of bait pressure, right? Play aggressive. It's the same way you deal with a Ramatra. Bait pressure, try and force that aggressive cooldown, wait till it expires, then walk back in. So you take a sort of fake fight, then a real fight, and try and win out from there.
Oh, Shatter, nicely done. I was just about to bring up the only problem in this matchup for Dark Fox is there's no way for him to save his team from a Shatter. Yeah, you can go in and try 1v3 the backline, survive for quite a while, but Earth Shatter's just a fight win if you're not matching it with a shield.
And now in last fight territory, the point is going to be the floor is lava, literally, with Xerxes on the Torbjorn. And obviously in a rush composition, that's really where you want to operate. So it gets really tough here for DAF Oconus in this second round, and only to pick off ahead of the actual engagement kind of coming through.
And I mean, the Kitsune Rush would be nice in most engagements, but the Molten Core can shut that one down. Okay, DAF Oconus are just pressing everything. Still pretty far from the sound barrier, though, so that Molten Core burns away at a couple. Risky now in the mix, and it will be enough for Oconus to survive on this stage. But that was 4 of their ults to do so, or 3 of their ults to do so.
Yeah, Griffin having just switched over to the Cassidy is a little ways away, but I mean, it's still very expensive. And now for DAF Oconus, all those operating windows about, baiting out the cooldowns does not matter anymore. You're going to put your Ant Matrix down, you're going to stand Ranger 16 down behind it, and fire away. I mean, already Griffin taking so much damage with the approach.
Blackhawk has been nailing these fire strikes. Gotta be a little bit careful. I mean, Ant Matrix Bastion is hardly a fair fight ever. Blackhawk getting pretty feisty considering how low he is. Oh, and the sound barrier from Heroes doesn't quite make it in time. With Blackhawk down, it's so difficult for Oconus to try and contest this. I think, was he in the middle of his shatter animation too when he died? Yep. Oh, that's brutal stuff. Still dancing around. Oconus, they're trying, but this just stalls time.
And that's a nice Gracie as well, right? The Jagged Knight pulling in. Oh, it doesn't matter. Pulling in the Bastion from the Immortality Field, so you get the clean out there.
Blackhawk, that's just a play of confidence. That's a tank diff, right?
I mean, tank diff is going to be the name of the game in this next fight, right? Yeah. I mean, Rampage, literally Rampage versus nothing.
Now, technically, you can block the Rampage with a Reinhardt shield. It's just really hard. Nice Suzu there, keeps Griffin up through the artillery strike. Here comes the Rampage, not blocked at all. That's 4 hit. An Immortality Field desperately trying to keep Oconus up in a turret form to weather away at Conus, but it's not nearly enough. It was 99-0, and now Conus are on the precipice of a map win.
I don't. There's no one can contest. Blackhawk will not be here in time, I do not think. And on top of that, you're walking to a Deadeye. Griffin is going to hold this at the choke, and as you try and get into line of sight, that damage is going to come in.
Oh, body blocked, but just barely able to make it. Not that Blackhawk will live to tell the tale. Without the tank up, it's pretty much borderline impossible. One already picked off by the Deadeye, and now it's just the stragglers. CONUS, the Continental United States Department of the Air Force. What a comeback on this second stage to secure a first map win.
That is a team that pushed the Army to the brink.
We almost lost that.
Right? This is a team that doesn't say die in the last minutes of the round. And I think a good read from them. One of the big problems with Control is that if you let your economy get away from you, right? If you let your ultimates kind of play out of your hand, a lot of the opportunities where you're going to want to win a fight just don't exist anymore. And a lot of credit has to be given to CONUS for finding, for keeping ultimates in check, right? They don't overspend. We saw just the Rampage, right? That enabled the Deadeye to instantly get rid of the Tracer, no stall available. And it's plays like that that make the difference in a Control map, especially one that your opponent only has to win one fight to take away.
And as we take a look back here, I think things are going to get even more difficult for Oconus, right? Because you come out on the first map, you try to play, your comfort comp, right? You run the Ramatra, you run some pretty stable DPS, doesn't really work out too well. Then you go into map number 2, you pull out something cheeky, Xerxes goes over onto the Torb, you get the Bastion in the mix. It works for a while, but eventually CONUS figured out what the deal was with that composition. They were able to pretty effectively evade the Bastion's viability. So going on to our map number 2 here, the question is, do you hard pivot, try to go for something completely different compositional, or do you go back to the tried and true, go back to a Ramatra versus Junker Queen rush mirror, a more traditional one, with the Mei in the mix, and try to make that work, try to refine that mid-match? It's difficult to call, but we will go to King's Row.
I wonder, man, this is such an interesting map. I mean, we talked about this in the first game, right? Where King's Row has evolved in recent memory. But you kind of have to think that the Junker Queen is just going to be able to kind of take more space here, right? You're not nearly as much threat. And with the fact that you have so much survivability, you can play on point a lot more effectively than perhaps you could in patches past. So, yeah, I mean, I understand this selection. It's a comfort selection, right? Something that you've practiced on almost certainly, right?
Yeah.
This is the default map, if you will. But I don't know that necessarily plays into your hands more than it does your opponent.
There are some outside opportunities to try and swap things up here. I was thinking, this is actually only the second King's Row we've seen today. We saw more Hollywood today than King's Row.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wait, I mean, we now know there's 2 maps. Wait till we find out there's more.
Also, we haven't seen much of any of our maps today.
That's true.
Like, the most we saw was 3 points of Junkertown, and we only saw that once.
We did see 3 rounds of Nepal as well. So.
Yeah, but, like, we haven't seen much of the hybrid maps. It's been, like, full hold, held shy of second, full hold.
Speaking of flexibility, though, Risky on a brand new pick. Junkrat. I mean, listen. If Junkrat, if you get your traps up, if you're able to hit your directs, Junkrat can be very useful.
And I mean,
also,
into a brawl in a map with chokes, can be pretty tricky.
Shield break is also something to kind of attend to, right?
Ranger got spotted. This is now not going to do anything. He's even getting tickled by the splash from the Ramatra staff. This rotation gets really tough too. Ooh, Xerxes gets cut off. Can they just push him? No, not quite. No speed boost for CONUS on the defense. They have to let Xerxes live here. Bro, he's just living here with 49 health. CONUS don't even care about him. They're just letting the DPS do whatever while the 3 stack from Oconus gets absolutely demolished.
Well, part of the problem with Xerxes being at that low HP the whole time is you can't peek around a corner to take a duel, right?
Yeah.
Because a stray shot takes you out. And at that stage, like, what's the difference between a character that is in spawn and a character that can't push around a corner? Effectively nothing.
That's tough.
So you just win the fight out in the main hall. It's kind of weird to see Ramatra fighting under the Mandata statue.
That is weird, right? Considering, like, it's, I don't know if it's heavily implied or directly stated in the lore that he's the one that gets Talon to, like, you know, Mandata. Either way. Xerxes trying not to right now. That's my death noise in case you guys couldn't figure that out. Heroes, unfortunately, will. I'm not gonna make the noise a third time, but he's done. He's done. Back to spawn he goes, and the rest of Oconus goes to join him.
I think impressively, DAF Conus haven't really done a ton of damage to get to this point either, right? Like, this has been sort of kind of allowing Oconus to kind of just stagger themselves fight to fight. Half the time make is gone.
I mean, we're 2 minutes in, and Blackhawk, Heroes, and Xerxes are hardly halfway to ults. Ranger at least, like, swapped, right? So there's that. Risky's about to have a tire. He's going to pop this the second he gets it, I bet. Oh, no, he doesn't feel the need to. All right, good guy. Good work. That's the discipline we like to see.
Dark Fox was 10 HP. Oh, my God, does not die.
9 more HP than he needs. With Knees and Cyber Pilot, these have been, I think Knees and Cyber Pilot have been extremely impressive for Conus, and these have been their best heroes. So this is just really solid for Conus.
I mean, Cyber Pilot on the Lucio is, I think, perfectly respectable of a player. The Brig has been
really good.
And I think that says something about Cyber Pilot, right? Because we don't often say Brig carry.
Knees?
I mean, you've got teleport. You're going to go for a play, and then you're going to teleport back as well. Your team.
Just body shots on Bing. Actually, Ranger trying to go up to deal with him. Risky does die in the middle of that tire, and where is it? I don't think it really got much of anything against the sound barrier coming out from Heroes. Griffin with an overclock. This is the difference maker. Already won. It's going to be a body shot bandit. Some more. 3 body shots it takes, but it'll get 3 kills for it.
Remember, it doesn't need to look pretty. It just needs to happen. And Griffin makes it happen.
30 seconds.
I mean, functionally, that's how you're supposed to use overclock, right? Those flashy headshot plays, they're a waste of time. And now, I mean, DAF Oconus has 20 seconds left to make an impression on this first objective, and they don't have anything.
Maybe if they're lucky, the rip tire comes up. But Ranger's struggling to hit much of anything right now. I mean, Ant Matrix will help. Ant Matrix turret mode, that has to be the difference maker. So he has his life. No, okay. I mean, gets the 1 pick on Knees, but no way that's enough. OT barely even a mention here. It whittles away so quickly.
And
previous fight, leave me alone. You guys are trolling.
These guys are having fun.
A little bit of friendly ribbon there as they finish up the defense. And now you're playing for a draw if you're Oconus, right? It's a 4 minutes for a draw,
right?
Yeah,
keep in mind, it is a first 2-2. So if somehow you get the, well, not the fuller hold, the equally full hold, I guess, we will go to a third map. That is a tall task, though. Conus have just had complete control of this game. So
and I mean, you know, we've seen Conus continue to just play to a proper game plan. I think that in a situation like this, again, when you're in a full hold situation, one of the things too is that I don't think the fights necessarily looked in favor of Oconus at times, right? That was the thing. Sometimes, you know, a full hold is just a great execution and it's a chess match that ends in a draw, right? This was not that. I think this is now Oconus just playing for a single fight that they have to win, and that's not a very difficult proposition when you see how Griffin was able to pilot, you know, the Soldier or Cyber Pilot, the Brig.
Yeah, if we're talking about chess matches here, this has been a scholar's mate, right? This has been the win in 4.
Attackers incoming.
And Oconus now have a very difficult task ahead of them.
And I mean, this Reinhardt is going to be a I mean, the big problem with Reinhardt is that against a Ramatra, it just loses. You can't hold shield. You can't swing. It's just it's a no-win situation for the team.
Especially with the Hanzo up, right? I mean, Risky just has to put pressure on the shield, get Blackhawk to start holding it up instead of, you know, toggling it for the damage, right? The second Blackhawk has to hold that, the fight is just done, and it might be done even earlier than that. Risky with the pick, gets rid of the turret. Knees even gets inside and out. He gets in and out of the hotel with a pick to his name. This is a slaughter now. Conus came to play, the continental United States. Certainly beating the world right now. Unbelievable dominance from Conus here in the DAF head-to-head. They'll guarantee themselves the second seed going into tomorrow.
And that means that the team that was able to contest the Army in the game earlier today will attempt to make that a second run, right? This is now an opportunity for them to be kind of that competitive matchup with them. And I think for Conus, have to go back to the drawing board, right? Not a lot of time, but yet a little bit left to make some adjustments.
And they still got Arrow in their back pocket to make those adjustments, right? So that is one of the bonuses for Conus going into tomorrow. They're one of the teams that does have, again, an ex-Overwatch League coach right there ready. Hey, here's what went wrong today. Here are the additions that we need to make, the adjustments we need to make. This series, certainly not the one that Conus was hoping for, but I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. Again, DAF Conus, they won the DAF Gaming League not too long ago, just barely a month ago. And like you said, they were the only team to really contest the Army team today. Phenomenal stuff from DAF Conus and a well-deserved second seed.
And what this means now, too, is that I want to talk about what was most impressive to me in this head-to-head, right? It's that second round and on Antarctic Peninsula on Icebreaker, right? On that submap. To go down 99-0 against a composition you arguably probably haven't played against a whole lot. And then to find out its breakpoints, to find out its weaknesses in real time and make the adaptations to bring the full comeback, I think is what Conus needs to do, what needs to keep, executing on as they move forward, right? That is what's going to be the difference maker between, coming in second and trying to take first place overall. And it's something we've seen over the day today, because even against that Army game on Nepal, we saw that against Paradox's Junker Queen, where they changed their play style and it made a world of difference. So yeah, definitely a very interesting look from Conus and a rightly earned second place for them.
Yeah, taking a look at our standings, this is going to be how it shapes up, folks. Unless, again, Coast Guard would need an insane upset over our current #1 seed of the Army to make this happen. We're still technically waiting on the end of that match, as far as I am aware, but let's be honest with ourselves. It's going to be the Army taking the Coast Guard.
I also don't think it changed anything, because then you talk about head-to-head as kind of being a tiebreaker. And I don't think it shifts much in terms of the score line, right? Map differential also plays into these favors, so there realistically shouldn't be much shifting, but nonetheless, impressive performance by a lot of our teams today, right? We saw a lot of highlight moments and a good macro gameplay, which coming into a tournament like this in a 1-2 in a round robin style, sometimes that falls to the wayside. The fact that we see a lot of good macro, meaning the high level gameplay, I think speaks quite well for our elimination bracket tomorrow.
And it's just so much fun to watch all these guys get to play on land, right? Even the teams that technically are struggling a little bit more, you can see the smiles on their faces when they queue up. We saw Coast Guard when they had yet to win a match, they queued in and they were all love, they were all smiles, all happy days. It's just a really cool experience for these guys to be able to finally get together. And we've been watching the interview, the footage, those videos all day long. And one thing that every single one of these teams has really driven home is that community that this creates, right? The fact that these members of these different branches of the military can get together, not only within their own branches now, but also get to interact with the other branches of the military and have a great time on land in San Antonio, Texas at the Boeing Center. It's so cool.
It really, really is. And I mean, you and I, we've kind of covered a lot of games over the last little while. It's something that we, see time and again, right? That communication being able to be improved and kind of work together, right? That's tremendous stuff. And I'm really looking forward to see now how our bracket shakes out tomorrow. With that being said, right? Because even as you include the camaraderie and kind of that communication and team play, it's still fun to win, right? It's still fun to have kind of the bragging rights on your way out. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for what that looks like tomorrow.
Oh, and we get to take a look at it. There it is. There's our bracket. That's how it shapes up. We're actually going to have a rematch of the match you guys we just saw. Actually, both of our round 5 matches are rematched right there tomorrow, which is that's actually really cool because it means that both these teams get to come fresh off this win or loss and talk about how they want to tackle their first game tomorrow. The winners of those games will go on to that final. The final will be first to 3 as well. So we get a little bit of a longer game. And then we have the consolation bracket where the Navy gets seeded into, and then whoever doesn't end up winning between Army, Coast Guard, DAF CONUS and DAF OCONUS. The lower of those seeds will fight the Navy in the first round. The higher one will get to go straight to the 3rd place game, which is another first to 3. That's going to be an awesome day tomorrow. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, exciting stuff, right? And I mean, you know, my eyes are drawing to that DAF CONUS versus DAF OCONUS game, right? I think for OCONUS, because of the fact that they had flashes of brilliance in certain fights and the fact that, you know, they have a lot of footage to work on of what their opponents' tendencies are, it's going to give them a better chance at a surprise coming into this one. Yeah, I'm definitely looking for forward to that game.
I mean, OCONUS, they nearly got away with that cheeky comp, right? They nearly got away with the Bastion on that one round. So they spent a little bit of time with Arrow tonight. They cook up something a little spicy. Who knows what they could accomplish? I am kind of hoping for an Army versus CONUS rematch, though, in the grand finals. I want to see that go 5 maps. I think we earned 5 maps out this weekend. But that's going to do it for our day number 1, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning in for the first day of the Department of the Air Force Esports Invitational. I've been Pulsable. That's been fun. We're going to be back tomorrow. Make sure you're following right here on this channel so that you know exactly, you get that notification when we are going live. I believe, LaFawn, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be 11 a.m. Central Time again?
I think that is correct.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah, 11 a.m. Central,
I probably
game number
should
1.
have checked for that. Okay, cool. I was right then. All right. We'll see you fine folks at 11 a.m. Central for the finale of the DAF Esports Invitational.
Universum singt von der Universum